The light from Shui Yu's third eye enveloped Long Chen. Space froze around him, and the others didn't even hesitate to attack. Shui Yu's third eye was an innate corrupt eye. It possessed mystical powers, and one of those was spatial locking power. Although its effect only lasted for a moment, it was easy to kill experts within that moment. There was no time to think. They all launched attacks at their greatest speed. Even if they weren't their ultimate attacks, they could still kill Long Chen instantly with all of them combined. Divine Ring. Boom. A 3,000-meter divine ring appeared, its 4 colors revolving. The locking power around Long Chen blew apart. At the same time, a terrifying chi wave sent all the people charging at him flying. A drop of blood leaked from Shui Yu's third eye. Long Chen's divine ring had actually injured his corrupt pupil. Long Chen's body suddenly moved. Like a bolt of lightning, he appeared in front of one of the ancient race peak experts. He was the one closest to him. That person immediately felt a chill. It was like a wild lion had set its gaze upon him. Even the companions around him didn't provide him the slightest feeling of safety. Clenching his teeth, his blood chi suddenly erupted. The runes around him became blood-colored, and a strange diagram appeared behind him. His aura erupted like a volcano. Boom! Long Chen's saber slashed down on his weapon. Although they were in the air, the shockwaves spread in every direction, shattering the ground. Quite a few people were instantly killed by the shockwaves. The ancient race expert was smashed into the ground, leaving a deep hole. But Long Chen was startled to see that this person merely coughed up a mouthful of blood. He was surprised to see this person could receive an attack from him now that he had summoned his divine ring. But the others were even more shocked. This peak expert had activated the might of his spirit blood to obtain power beyond his limits, but still had been injured. Shui Yu and the others finally became fully aware that Long Chen's power far surpassed their expectations. In the beginning, everyone had been trying to preserve their strength and trump cards for the upcoming battle after they killed Long Chen. At that moment, it would be time to split the spoils. But now seeing that this peak expert had turned into his current state even after the support of his spirit blood, they recognized the cruel reality. Trying to be clever would make them pay a terrible price. Whoever keeps holding back will be attacked by everyone else after the battle is over, said Shui Yu. He activated his spirit blood, which was his ancestors' bloodline blessing. It was an extremely miraculous and precious energy. The whole reason why they were able to become peak existences amongst rank 4 celestials was because of their density of spirit blood. It far surpassed the other rank 4 celestials, allowing Shui Yu and the other to suppress them. Now that they had all activated their spirit blood's power, the runes around them turned blood-colored. An invisible energy was gathering toward them, causing a loud rumbling. Shui Yu's sword was the first to slash toward Long Chen. An indescribable energy was contained within this sword that made it terrifying to the peak. Boom! When Long Chen blocked with his saber, he was knocked back several steps. As expected, the support of spirit blood was extremely powerful. Even with his divine ring, he was knocked back. On the other hand, even with his spirit blood, Shui Yu felt Long Chen's power to be the truly terrifying thing. He was blown back dozens of meters before stabilizing. Ji Changkong, Yu Changhao, Ka Wutu, and the other peak experts all released their full power with Shui Yu taking the lead. With 6 peak experts going all out, their combat power was heaven-shaking. Up in the air, Long Chen fought against 6 peak experts. The void was constantly shaking due to their power. The battlefield was now split into 3 sections. Long Chen's battle was at the center. Then there was Meng Qi and the others fighting the rank 4 celestials. And the third battle was even further away but involved many more people. The corrupt path, righteous path, and ancient race experts were fighting against the aboriginals, 3 earth dragons, and 1 red-eye sacred blood phoenix. The 4 magical beasts were extremely powerful, and quite a few experts had to be used to keep them back. That allowed the aboriginals to take advantage. Added together, the righteous path, corrupt path, and the ancient races had originally possessed over 70,000 experts. But because of Meng Qi and Guoran's ultimate attacks, as well as the powerful attacks of the magical beasts, they were down to less than 60,000. In truth, a portion of that loss wasn't just due to deaths. Some had fled. Of course, those people were from the righteous path. One reason was because they were just too weak. Rank 1 Celestials were no different than cannon fodder in a battle on this level. A shockwave from any random blow might kill them. Previously, they had thought that by cheering for Ji Changkong, they could form friendly ties with him and through that, elevate their status. But now, the situation was rapidly changing and getting out of control. Even while facing the corrupt path, righteous path, and ancient race's peak experts, Long Chen was still able to fight. That combat power terrified them. They even regretted that they had overestimated Ji Changkong. Their decision to invest in a relationship with him had been too brash. Now, their best decision was to retreat with their lives while they could. The righteous path had originally numbered over 30,000. After a portion had died, a greater portion had stealthily slipped away. Now, the ones remaining were less than 10,000. And these people remaining were just cheering loudly without putting in any work. They managed to make themselves sound loud and brave, but to maintain a safe distance, they only launched long-distance attacks. Those kinds of attacks were nothing more than itches, because they were afraid of making their enemies angry and being attacked. In any case, the corrupt path and ancient race experts were the true fighters that fought to the death. The righteous path's experts all excelled in cheering while doing nothing, giving a new meaning to the word useless. Now the aboriginals possessed greater numbers and greater individual power. While the situation wasn't set in stone yet, their advantage was growing greater and greater. Tang Wan'er and the others were surrounding Meng Qi, guarding her while she used the soul-suppressing tower to help defend everyone else. At the same time, she occasionally activated her treasure items to launch attacks. Meng Qi was the one who possessed the most treasure items currently. She had bracelets, rings, and earrings. In fact, even her shoes were treasure items. The majority of them were energy storage treasure items. Activating them to launch an attack didn't require any of her own spiritual yuan. The most terrifying aspect of these energy storage treasure items was their ability to launch instantaneous attacks. Of everyone present, Meng Qi was the only one not skilled in close-range combat. In order to make sure that Meng Qi could protect herself, Long Chen had spent the most on her, giving her over 10 energy storage treasure items. One reason was because Meng Qi needed them the most, but the other reason was only someone with vast soul energy like her could precisely control so many treasure items. Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, Gu Yang, and Yu Zifeng were working together as a unit. The rank 4 Celestials were all blocked by them, and they were all exhausting a great deal of their soul energy to maintain their soul items. That was to prevent Meng Qi from killing them in one shot with a spiritual attack. That was the terror of soul cultivators. Without a soul item protecting a person, then there was the constant danger of being killed in one attack. Not every expert possessed such powerful spiritual strength. Due to this, they were unable to truly release all their power. So both sides were at a stalemate. A bit further from them was Guo Ran. With sabers in both hands, he was fighting 3 rank 4 Celestials, which caused metallic ringing to continuously come from there. Those fighting Guo Ran had an urge to vomit blood as Guo Ran's armor was completely immoral. After fighting for so long, they finally saw cracks appear on Guo Ran's armor. That had made them ecstatic. But after so much work, when the armor finally broke, they almost went insane. What they had broken was just the outer skin of the armor. Once that outer layer was broken, it revealed a completely fine set of armor. Are you guys going to be alright? My armor has a total of 18 layers, and at this rate, you won't be able to see my amazing body until next year, said Guo Ran. You fucker, you're too shameless. One of them directly coughed up a mouthful of blood from Guo Ran's words. He was incredibly close to passing out. However, they also didn't dare to ignore Guo Ran and could only continue like this. Otherwise, he would charge into their army. His killing power was too great, so even if they couldn't kill him, they had to hold him back. Both parties were stalling on Guo Ran's side. But on Wild's side, danger sprang up all over. There were 9 experts attacking him, and one of those had almost lost his life to Wild right at the very beginning in his carelessness. Wild's attacks were too terrifying for them. There were no hints prior to the attacks, and they came in a bold and unconstrained style. All 9 of them were unable to predict his next actions. In truth, Wild was just randomly smashing his hammer. Previously, Long Chen had refused to accept that Wild couldn't learn any techniques, and he had spent a full month teaching Wild a move. But the result was that Wild forgot it in just 2 days. Nowadays, Long Chen wouldn't try teaching Wild anything even if he was beaten to death. The fiercest battle was at Long Chen's side. The desert around them was constantly sinking. The fierce clashing auras were incredibly intense. The entire battlefield had entered a strange equilibrium. Meng Qi suddenly felt a twist in space. A slender, translucent sword suddenly appeared next to her, piercing toward the space between her ribs. A translucent sword appeared out of nowhere, looking as if it had come right out of space. It advanced at a dead angle toward Meng Qi. "Sister Meng Qi," cried Tangwan. As a wind attribute expert, she was extremely sensitive to spatial fluctuations. Water was variable, but wind was always in motion. Any obstructions either had to be blown away by the wind or cause the wind to change direction. So Tangwana was the first to notice. But suddenly she found that something was off. The sword had pierced through Meng Qi's body, but there was no blood, nor was there any reaction from Meng Qi. Her body faded. An afterimage? A man slowly appeared in the air, surprised. Explode! Meng Qi appeared hundreds of meters away. Forming hand seals, an invisible sphere exploded above her, splattering yellow powder everywhere. That man was instantly blanketed by the yellow powder. However, it seemed that the powder was just ordinary powder. It didn't contain any offensive power. This sneak attacker was naturally the Bloodkill Hall's top assassin, Huang Junmo. He had been hidden on the battlefield the entire time. In fact, he had been there ever since Long Chen had arrived at Drake Mountain, only holding back the entire time because he had never found a good time to kill Long Chen. When Long Chen had arrived at Drake Mountain, he had felt that something was off. However, he hadn't been able to pinpoint the exact reason. It was as though he was being stared at by an expert, but he had been unable to sense the expert's position. That had made him keep his guard up. The only one who could hide his existence from him was a peak assassin like Huang Junmo. Therefore, Long Chen had given Meng Qi some instructions on their way here. She had kept a protective treasure item active the entire time. It was an extremely special treasure item. When she was about to be struck by a close-range attack, it would instantly teleport her away. This kind of treasure item was of little use normally, but it was priceless to Meng Qi. She didn't fight in close range, so such a treasure item was practically made for her. Although using it once would exhaust all its energy, just this one time was enough. As soon as Meng Qi had activated the treasure item, she had also detonated the sphere Long Chen had given her. The golden powder gave off a strong stench and light. There was no way for Huang Junmo to erase them in the short term. They had basically broken Huang Junmo's self-concealment abilities. Huang Junmo's expression changed. He instantly realized what was going on. Long Chen's prediction had been accurate. Huang Junmo would be lying in wait for an opportunity to kill him or assassinate one of the most important people to him to make him go crazy. According to his experience with assassins, if they weren't guaranteed to kill him in one blow, they wouldn't take action. Even if he were to try baiting Huang Junmo into attacking him, with Huang Junmo's immense assassination experience, it wasn't likely he would fall for it. Instead, it would expose that he had sensed him. So Long Chen's guess was that Huang Junmo would kill one of his women to infuriate him. He wouldn't choose one of the men, as the easiest way to enrage a man was to target their women. Long Chen had absolute confidence that Huang Junmo would choose either Tang Wan'er or Meng Qi. As a wind attribute expert, Tang Wan'er was immersed in the endless wind element around her, making her extremely sensitive to spatial fluctuations. Thus, it would be difficult for Huang Junmo to approach her. As for Meng Qi, she was a soul cultivator. Although her spiritual strength was great, and she was also sensitive to auras, it would be easier for him to approach her while she was focusing on her enemies. So Long Chen had been almost sure he would choose to attack Meng Qi. Huang Junmo, you finally appeared. I've been waiting for a long time. 4-star battle armor. Stars appeared in Long Chen's eyes, and an explosive sound came from his body. His aura erupted like an awakening dragon. Boom. Shui Yu and the others were instantly sent flying by a terrifying chi wave. They couldn't help being horrified. Long Chen had actually been holding back. After summoning the 4-star battle armor, he appeared like a battle god. With a single step, he closed the distance between himself and Huang Junmo, slashing his sword down. Huang Junmo's expression changed. He hadn't expected his perfect assassination attempt to be ruined and to be thrown into Long Chen's trap. There was no way for him to conceal himself any longer. Blood Fiend Grand Formation, Heaven and Earth Merge, shouted Huang Junmo. He immediately activated his spirit blood and used a secret technique to push his power to its peak. Boom. Visible ripples appeared in the void. Although Gu Yang and the others had been informed by Meng Qi and retreated, they were still struck by those ripples. Those ripples struck them, as well as the rank 4 celestials fighting them. They felt as if a mountain-like hammer had smashed into their bodies, and they all vomited blood. Only Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er were slightly better off. Meng Qi had already retreated far away, while Tang Wan'er was extremely fast. But they were both sent flying even further. More explosive sounds rang out as the ripples spread to the ground. Huang Junmo crashed into the desert, vomiting blood. The people fighting where he landed were devoured by a wave of sand. He had landed right in the center of the battlefield. Fortunately, Guoran had been smarter. After seeing Long Chen's attack, he had immediately let out a fierce spurt of wind and soared straight to the clouds. The 3 experts fighting him were stunned as they lost track of him. Before they could even tell what was happening, a huge wave of earth devoured them. The previous ripple that had struck them had been the shockwave from their attack. But this earth wave contained the true power of Long Chen's attack. Even Huang Junmo hadn't been able to bear it and had been blown into the ground. This wave of earth was the result of him shedding as much of the excess power as he could. As a result, the 3 of them were very unlucky. In fact, the experts fighting against Wild were also unlucky. They were like ants in front of that wave. The energy within that wave of earth smashed their bodies to pieces, and hundreds of other figures were blown to bits. Those figures had been hidden before this. But when that earth wave erupted, they couldn't continue hiding. They had tried to flee, but they had been too slow. These people were the Bloodkill Hall's elite assassins. They had caused countless experts to tremble in fear, but now they had been turned to dregs. The strongest aspect of assassins was their assassination arts. Their combat power lay in sneak attacks and fleeing. Defense was something they looked down upon, or there wouldn't be the assassin's creed of fleeing if the first attack failed. Even if they had the power to kill across realms, their defensive ability was basically zero. This one attack had killed all the elites of the Bloodkill Hall. If that news was transmitted, the entire world would probably be shaken. The Bloodkill Hall's way of raising disciples was extremely stringent. This attack had basically killed this generation of the Bloodkill Hall's talented disciples. Boss really is vicious. He's getting more and more monstrous. Guoran had flown into the air with a single fart. Looking at the apocalyptic scene below and those experts miserably vomiting blood, he felt goosebumps. He tried to wipe the sweat off his forehead but forgot he was wearing a helmet. Personally watching the earth wave rapidly spreading, Guoran gulped. Great earthen protection. Song Mingyuan saw that this earth wave would still affect them despite how far they were. If they were struck, there were quite a few people that most likely wouldn't be able to bear it. Boom. A huge dome covered everyone, protecting them from the earth wave. The experts outside were dumbfounded. They had no time to think too much. They fled so quickly it seemed like they wished they could use their third leg as well. But they were still devoured by the earth wave. The wave spread tens of thousands of miles. Li Qi and Song Mingyuan's defense was covering a huge area, and they still managed to bear it. When the wave passed, people popped out of the ground like moles, filled with horror. They were currently in a huge crater. It was like a meteor had struck this place. "Is this really the power of a human?" muttered one of the Foundation Forging tribe leaders. "The threat has passed. Everyone go all out. There's no need for mercy now." What we need is the blood of our enemies. We'll use their foolish lives to comfort our departed brothers," shouted Long Chen. Previously, Long Chen had always been worried about Huang Junmo and his assassins. They were the ones that posed the greatest threat to his people and the aboriginals. Now that threat was over, it was time to let loose and start a slaughter. Kill! The aboriginals thought of their fallen tribesmen and charged toward the enemies closest to them. Pain made people angry. Pain made people crazy. But pain could also make a person brave and tenacious. Huang Junmo's not dead. Everyone, work together to kill Long Chen, shouted Yu Changhao. He still sensed Huang Junmo's aura and had to gather everyone's power to kill Long Chen. Long Chen was in the midst of preparing his second attack, so they all charged forward to interrupt him. "Let's settle things today." Long Chen tightly gripped Blood Drinker, battle intent soaring out of him. It was time to resolve all their grudges. Shuiyu was the first to unleash his attack. A huge bone claw shot forward, releasing an evil air. Its runes were completely different from before. After being nourished by Shuiyu, it had become stronger and more sinister. The bone claw was as large as a mountain as it reached toward Long Chen. Shuiyu was no longer holding back any trump cards. He had realized that holding back was an exceedingly foolish thing to do now. Long Chen's power far exceeded his expectations. It was only because they had been holding back that Long Chen had managed to kill one of them. If they continued being so foolish, the results would be unthinkable. In the beginning, he had put aside his plans to fight Long Chen on his own and work together with the others because he had been worried about Long Chen fleeing after being defeated. But now he realized that the ones to flee would be them if they continued holding back. The evil dragon bone claw released a horrifying power. That evil air it released made it seem like thousands of ghouls were wailing, demanding lives. Boom. Long Chen used Split the Heavens, but he was blown back. Now that Shuiyu was going all out, he was extremely powerful. Long Chen had just blocked Shuiyu's bone claw when a golden wing slashed down. This wing was formed of runes and was a mile long. It released blinding light. Yu Changhao possessed the golden wing blood falcon's bloodline. In ancient times, the golden wing blood falcon was renowned for its power. It was said they were the golden Peng's descendants, and their wings were their greatest weapons. Yu Changhao was also no longer holding back. The illusory image behind him transformed into a huge golden wing that slashed toward Long Chen. Long Chen's expression was solemn, but he wasn't surprised. He had long since known that these fellows were hiding ulterior motives and holding back the majority of their power. After killing him, they would rely on that power to fight over the spoils of battle. But now they finally felt threatened and stopped holding back. This combat power was within his expectations. Long Chen didn't retreat in the face of Yu Changhao's attack. Blooddrinker's runes circulated. The energy of his 4 stars and 4 chi seas surged forth. Boom. Long Chen managed to block the huge wing, but its immense power continued to blow him back rapidly. With a furious roar, Long Chen's muscles bulged as he fought back against the wing's immense power. Die! Seeing Long Chen was deadlocked with Yu Changhao, the 2 ancient race experts didn't hesitate to pour all their energy into their treasure items. The true form of their treasure items appeared in the air. Scram! Long Chen's roar was like thunder. With a fierce shove, he forced Yu Changhao's huge wing to the side. It now came crashing toward the 2 of them. Boom! Yu Changhao's huge wing struck their 2 attacks. All 4 of them were blown back. This was a truly heaven-shaking collision. Heaven and earth changed color, the sun and moon lost all color, and space crumbled. The peak experts were finally going all out. The level this battle had reached was appalling. Spiderweb cracks appeared on the ground. The distant experts had no choice but to stop fighting and focus on defending against the aftershocks. After enduring it, whether it was the aboriginals, the righteous path, the corrupt path, or the ancient races, they all stopped fighting. Gathering together, they retreated even further. They now realized that their battle was no different than a game between children. The true battle was over there. If they continued fighting, then before their enemies killed them, they would be killed by the shockwaves. Remote Heaven Dragon Trapping Net. Ji Changkong also finally took action. He specialized in magical arts, and the hand seals he made caused the void to quiver. Millions of chains appeared in the air from every direction, piercing toward Long Chen. This was an extremely terrifying magical art, and its scope was especially astonishing. These chains covered an area of several thousand miles, making it so no one could dodge. Long Chen could only receive it head-on. The instant the chains had formed, Long Chen's heart was shaken. He hadn't expected Ji Changkong's control over magical arts to have reached such a refined realm. He released a slash of saber chi that struck the chains, but they didn't break. The chains were flexible, allowing them to avoid taking on too much force. They continued to pierce toward Long Chen. Long Chen, this is my remote heaven dragon trapping net. It is a secret art that my remote heaven gang does not share with others. It is incomparably tough, capable of even trapping dragons. You won't be able to escape, sneered Ji Changkong as he controlled his hand seals. This remote heaven dragon trapping net was his strongest technique. In a one-against-one, he had the confidence to trap anyone. Just this one technique made him undefeatable. The dragons you're talking about are definitely not true dragons. A dragon's power isn't something an idiot like you could understand. Watch as I break your garbage net. Long Chen raised Blood Drinker. Its runes rapidly circulated, and it grew rapidly, piercing into the clouds and the chains. Break! Blood Drinker's runes suddenly froze and terrifying ripples erupted. The ripples destroyed the chains one by one. Impossible! Ji Changkong couldn't believe his own eyes. Long Chen had now summoned Blood Drinker's true body. This was Blood Drinker's strongest state. Blood Drinker was a peak-grade treasure item, and after being nourished by his soul for so long, their connection was extremely close. Its power wasn't something other peak-grade treasure items could compare to. The chains were Heavenly Dao chains, and it should have been impossible for them to break. All cultivators felt respect and fear for the Heavenly Daos. That was an innate suppression. No matter how brazen a person was, they wouldn't dare to fight against the heavens. The name of the remote heaven dragon trapping net was actually a ploy to intimidate others. Relying on the Heavenly Dao suppression, then adding the intimidating name, it made it so others wouldn't even be able to form the urge to fight back. It destroyed a person's will and then easily trapped them. But this kind of trick was useless against Long Chen. In front of those terrifying heavenly tribulations, he had never lowered his head. Last time, he had even been bound by true Heavenly Dao lightning chains, but he had still torn apart the dome of the sky. Was Ji Changkong trying to make a joke by attempting to trap him in these chains? In truth, Blood Drinker's power wasn't what had destroyed these chains. Instead, while releasing its own power, it had also released Long Chen's unrivaled will. Even the will of the Heavenly Daos had to break in front of Long Chen's will. Without the will of the Heavenly Daos supporting them, these chains were just formed of ordinary Heavenly Dao energy. That was what had resulted in their easy collapse. Long Chen, have a taste of my devil soul possession corrupt corpse rebirth. Long Chen had just broken the remote heaven dragon trapping net when a huge figure appeared in front of him. In front of all those ultimate moves, Long Chen's expression had been extremely flat. But seeing the current Kawutu, he was shocked. Kawutu's entire body was black. He looked like a corpse, and even his head had disappeared. He attacked Long Chen with a huge hatchet. Long Chen had never seen a technique like this. When his saber clashed against Kawutu's hatchet, he found that the headless Kawutu was now incomparably powerful. His body emitted endless death chi that would make a person feel like their bodies were rotting when they came into contact with it. With his saber blocking the hatchet, Long Chen sent a kick toward Kawutu's abdomen. But Kawutu was only kicked a few meters away, while a burst of pain came from Long Chen's foot. Long Chen was startled. He dodged Kawutu's next attack and slashed his saber into his shoulder. Although Kawutu's power had explosively grown, his agility had dropped quite a bit. Shockingly, his saber merely caused some metallic ringing when it landed on Kawutu's body. It was like it had slashed into another treasure item. His body wasn't injured at all. Haha, Long Chen, you look down on me too much. This technique of mine is called the Devil Soul Possession Corrupt Corpse Rebirth. This body you see isn't mine. Even the soul isn't mine. It is a peerless expert's soul and a peerless expert's corpse. Sword or spear, fire or water, nothing is able to damage me. This is my undefeatable state. Kawutu's laughter came from his abdomen. This technique was so strange that it made a person's hair stand on end. So what? Your corpse is lacking a head, and no matter how strong that soul of yours is, the corpse can't be used to fight without a head. If you can't control it properly in battle, it's still trash in the end. Long Chen slashed his saber. Kawutu instinctively went to block it, but this had just been a feint from Long Chen. His hatchet landed on nothing, which revealed an opening that Long Chen used to kick him away. Leng Yueyan had been entirely correct. Kawutu was precisely a cutting board. Right now, Long Chen had no time to study him any further, because Shui Yu and the others were once more charging forward. Long Chen had pushed his combat power to its peak with his divine ring and 4-star battle armor. A fierce battle erupted, one that caused the world to shake. Peak light blood shadow. A furious roar resonated. A figure flew out, leaving phantoms behind him as his speed was pushed to the peak. He charged forward and slashed a sword at Long Chen. Sword chi pierced toward Long Chen, causing his hair to stand on end. There was something different about this sword chi. He used the lightning body blink to dodge it, and it flew past his body. Kawutu had been in the midst of raising his hatchet when the sword chi struck him. Shockingly, Kawutu's previously impervious body had a cut appear on it. Long Chen, I'll definitely end you. Huang Junmo appeared, his eyes scarlet. He hated Long Chen down to his bones. Last time, he had acted like a god to play the devil with the Eastern Wasteland Belle. He had caused him to lose a fortune and almost lose his life. It was a huge humiliation for him. He had been waiting from moment time Long Chen arrived at Drake Mountain, but he hadn't found an opportunity to kill him in a single blow. Without being assured of killing him in one blow, he hadn't attacked. Up until now, he had never failed his assassination attempts with the exception of when he had attacked Long Chen on Insect Island. This time he had decided to kill Long Chen in one blow to erase the humiliation he had given him and retrieve his glory as a killing god. However, Long Chen was too strong. Despite his calm as an assassin, he had lost his patience. He was worried Long Chen would kill everyone, and then he would never be able to kill him. So he had set his gaze on Meng Qi. Originally, he hadn't had any plans on killing her. His plan had been to heavily injure her and take her as a hostage. That would give him another trump card and infuriate Long Chen. Regretfully, he had landed within Long Chen's plan. As soon as he made his move, he had been seen through and had his concealing arts ruined. Then Long Chen had launched a sudden attack against him. Due to having his aura concealed, his energy had been in a static state. He hadn't had time to fully activate his power, so that one attack had almost taken his life. If it hadn't been for Shui Yu and the others attacking, then one more attack from Long Chen would have erased Huang Junmo's existence from this world. Huang Junmo was infuriated. After healing, he had immediately erupted with his full power, using the Peak Light Blood Shadow movement art, as well as his Blood Fiend Sword Chi. Blood Fiend Sword Chi was a secret technique of the Blood Kill Hall. After using the user's essence blood, it absorbed all the baleful aura in the world to release an incomparably fierce attack. Legend said that the Blood Fiend Sword Chi was an extremely extraordinary secret art. It was a magical art that had received the killing god's blessing. "Do you not have eyes?" raged Kawutu upon seeing this attack leave a foot-long cut on his body. This body was not his own. It was a corpse, and it didn't bleed, nor did it feel pain. But once its muscles and bones were severed, its combat power would sharply drop. Don't fight. Work together to kill Long Chen first. Otherwise, don't even think about trying to explain yourself to the higher-ups, shouted Shui Yu. To kill Long Chen, the corrupt path, the righteous path, and the ancient races had suffered immense losses. If they couldn't even kill him in the end, they would be screwed. They had no way to explain such huge casualties. Shui Yu, Yu Changhao, Kawutu, Ji Changkong, Huang Junmo, and the two peak ancient race experts attacked at the same time. The treasure items in their hands released blinding light, as huge projections of their weapons appeared in the air. 7 experts had unstintingly sacrificed their spiritual yuan to summon their treasure items' true forms. Right now, there was nothing more important to them than killing Long Chen. Blood Drinker, let's see just how strong you are. Long Chen took a deep breath, and the energy in his 4 Cs poured into Blood Drinker. A 300-meter saber appeared in the air. Kill! Long Chen roared and charged forward. The manifestations of the treasure items' true bodies clashed together fiercely. It was like the end of the world. The distant experts were only able to see light exploding, unable to see anything within that light. All of them were stupefied by the level of this battle. Watching this apocalyptic battle, even Meng Qi and the others were sweating despite their trust in Long Chen. The people he was facing were all heavenly geniuses that could shake the world. They all had legends of being undefeatable. But Long Chen was facing 7 of them at the same time, causing their hearts to rise into their throats. Not good. Boss is starting to lose. Gu Yang's expression suddenly changed. They had been fighting evenly for an incense stick's worth of time. Even 1 against 7, Long Chen hadn't been at a disadvantage at the start. But as time passed, the 7 of them gradually got used to the others' attack styles. Their cooperation was growing, and they were no longer just fighting on their own. Long Chen was being forced to constantly fall back. Seeing that caused everyone's hearts to clench. Wild was about to charge out when he was stopped by Meng Qi. Perhaps in the entire Dragonblood Legion, only Wild possessed the power to participate in a battle on this level. But Wild didn't understand any battle tactics, let alone how to cooperate with others. If he rashly entered, then there was a chance he might be able to kill one of them instantly. But if they were in a deadlock, then considering that the 7 of them were veterans of hundreds of battles, it would gradually become dangerous for Wild. And the chances of him managing to kill one of them instantly were extremely remote. At that time, Long Chen would have to look after Wild. It wasn't worth it. Unless Long Chen was truly in a critical situation, they couldn't interfere. Long Chen, no one will be able to save you now, shouted Shui Yu as he attacked with his bone claw. In truth, Shui Yu and the others were incomparably shocked, and not just by Long Chen's combat prowess. They were also shocked by the blood-colored saber in his hands. Even after fighting so long and clashing so many times against their own peak-grade treasure items, that saber wasn't the slightest bit damaged. On the other hand, it was their peak-grade treasure items like the Bone Claw and Yu Changhao's Bao that were starting to reach their breaking points. As for Huang Junmo, there were several small nicks in his translucent sword, making him incredibly distressed. The only comforting thing was that they had finally understood each other's rhythms and were able to put Long Chen at a disadvantage at last. Now the situation was dangerous for him. Long Chen had no choice but to admit that the 7 of them were extremely strong. It was fortunate he had killed one in the beginning, or his current plight would be even more miserable. Die! Suddenly, the 7 of them released a combination attack. The energy from their 7 weapons merged together, forming an incomparably terrifying attack. This combination attack was full of flaws as it was their first time using it, but it was still extremely powerful. As soon as it appeared, Meng Qi and the others clenched their fists. Boom! Long Chen used the second form of Split the Heavens and brought out all of Blooddrinker's power, but he was still sent flying and vomited blood. If it weren't for the fact that he had started refining the true dragon essence blood, completely changing his physical body, he'd have long since been blown apart. And if Blooddrinker wasn't so strong and blocking the majority of their power for him, he would have become Ka Wutu's cutting board. Long Chen vomited blood, feeling that his organs and bones had been badly damaged. Their combination attack was unblockable, and after fighting so long, he felt his spiritual yuan had dropped drastically despite his 4 chi Cs. Seeing their attack injure Long Chen, they didn't give him any breathing room. They once more unleashed their combination attack. With their experience from the last one, its power was even greater than ever. Long Chen, Tang Wana was filled with worry. Seeing him vomit blood, she felt like needles were stabbing her heart. Meng Qi held her hand, both of their palms covered in sweat. Despite their worry, they were unable to help. Shui Yu, Yu Changhao, and the others were peak rank 4 celestials. The density of their spirit blood gave them immense combat power. Tang Wanner and the others were able to fight ordinary rank 4 celestials, but these 7 were too terrifying. With the power they were currently displaying, they could easily kill an ordinary rank 4 celestial. As for the aboriginals, they didn't have the slightest ability to fight people like Shui Yu and the other. The difference in power was just too big. Don't worry, boss has a trump card. Contrary to the others, Guoran was full of confidence. The faith he had in Long Chen was practically blind. But as expected, it was truly Guoran that understood Long Chen the best. As soon as he had said this, Long Chen put away Blood Drinker and formed hand seals. As he formed the hand seals, 2 dragon tattoos on his arms began to shine. An aura that caused heaven and earth to change rose. Looks like there won't be any more variables, so there's no need to hold back any longer. Double dragon destruction. Roaring filled the air. A lightning and flame dragon erupted into the air like a twister. After devouring the blood-incinerating lion flame, Huolong had finally finished refining its energy. It was now incredibly powerful. As for Lei Long, it had refined the thunder force from Long Chen's tribulation, which made it even fiercer. Now that the 2 dragons appeared in the world again, their pressure caused the world to shake. After testing it several times, Long Chen had concluded that there wouldn't be any more unforeseen events. He directly released his greatest trump card. The 2 dragons coiled around each other as they charged toward the 7 of them. The 2 dragons were both a mile long, but in truth, their true bodies were much larger. If they brought out their true bodies, they would at least be 10 miles long. But Long Chen had them compress their bodies. That might catch their opponents off guard and bring about the greatest possible gains. In front of everyone's horrified gazes, the double dragon attack ruthlessly struck Shui Yu and the others' combination attack. A blinding light erupted and even the stars shuddered. Shui Yu and the others were appalled to find that their combination attack was unable to bear even the first impact of the 2 dragons. Their attack instantly exploded, and then the 2 dragons continued to rush toward them. A terrifying sensation of death filled their hearts. They all realized it was too late to run. Shui Yu was the first to act. A blood-red ray shot out of his third eye and onto the bone claw. Shui Yu was feeding his own essence blood to the corrupt dragon bone claw in order to bring out its greatest power. He had no choice but to sacrifice his precious essence blood now. He had to protect his life first. The bone claw closed around him, protecting him at its core. At the same time, a 3-fold blood-red barrier appeared around it. The others also quickly unleashed powerful trump cards. Those trump cards all came at a price, but it allowed them to summon the greatest possible defense. Boom! The 2 dragons exploded. The world lost all its light and the time turned still. Even Long Chen was shocked by his own attack. The distant experts looked up at the sky in horror. This time, the power was extremely condensed. The explosion had only affected the core region without unleashing an immense shockwave. It was extremely strange. After a moment, the 7 of them reappeared in their sights, all of them vomiting blood. Shui Yu's bone claw was covered in cracks. This attack had basically ruined it. Shui Yu himself was pale as paper. His third eye was tightly closed, a trickle of blood slowly pouring out of it. Yu Changhao appeared even more miserable. The 2 wings that had protected him were smashed apart, and he was covered in blood. The others were the same. The peak-grade treasure items they held in their hands had shattered. The only reason why they had managed to survive was because they had used self-harming techniques to push their defenses to the peak. Suddenly, a figure appeared beside Huang Junmo. A saber pierced through his body. While they were still in the midst of their terror and shock, Long Chen had launched a sudden attack. Huang Junmo's treasure item had already shattered, and blocking Long Chen's attack had heavily injured him. While his body looked complete, in reality his insides had been smashed and broken. He was incredibly weak now. To block the double dragon destruction, he had used up all his spiritual yuan. There was no way for him to use heavenly Tao energy to recover. As a result, Long Chen's blade easily pierced his chest. Huang Junmo, "Do you have anything to say?" said Long Chen, panting. Just now, Long Chen hadn't held back with the double dragon destruction. He had basically used up all his spiritual yuan. That was what had allowed Lei Long and Hua Long to possess such terrifying power. He was also exhausted, but he knew the others were worse off than him. His first choice was to immediately kill Huang Junmo because of his abilities to flee. The speed he had displayed in their battle hadn't been slower than his own when he used the lightning body blink. With his saber through his body, Long Chen could tell exactly what was going on inside Huang Junmo. His injuries were incredibly heavy, to the point that he was on the verge of collapse. Defense was the fatal weakness of assassins. What Long Chen hadn't expected was that Huang Junmo looked down at the blade piercing his chest and smiled. He shook his head. The winner is king, while the loser is garbage. There's nothing to say. Death is the final fate of all assassins. I return to the god's embrace. Suddenly, a strange sound came from Huang Junmo's body. His body cracked like porcelain and then broke apart, falling to the ground. Huang Junmo was dead. He had used the final bit of power remaining inside him to end himself. Even his soul had dissipated as he had chosen a dignified way to die. Long Chen looked at Blood Drinker. In truth, he had sensed Huang Junmo's actions and could have stopped him. But he hadn't in the end, allowing Huang Junmo to die with dignity. Although Huang Junmo had been arrogant and targeted him multiple times, that was simply a part of the cultivation path. This path was naturally a game of natural selection. The majority of people only did what they did in order to live. Once a person was dead, the past grievances were settled. A generation's genius, a peerless assassin, had died. The world was silent for a moment. The other 6 experts stood in the distance, filled with shock. This result was not something they had wanted. Attack! Suddenly, the experts of the corrupt path and ancient races charged toward them. They were horrified. If they allowed this to continue, their peak experts would find it difficult to flee from Long Chen's vicious grasp. "Stop them!" shouted Guoran as he led everyone over. Everyone on Long Chen's battlefield was out of energy. Although the others couldn't help before, they could help now. Wild roared furiously and charged to the front, with other experts following. The aboriginals moved out in full force, forming a wall that prevented the others from passing. The battlefield once more became chaotic. Long Chen felt weary enough to die, but he still raised his blade and charged at Shui Yu and the others. All of them were out of spiritual yuan and were fighting with only their physical bodies. All of them knew that Long Chen was also exhausted. In the end, it would be up to who could last longer. Boom. After an intense bout, one of the peak ancient race experts was struck by his saber and blown to bits. But to do so, Long Chen had left an opening on his back. The other ancient race expert stabbed his sword through him. But before he could celebrate, Long Chen sent him a kick to the crotch. That fierce pain caused his brain to go blank for a moment. "Watch out!" shouted Ji Changkong. But it was too late. Long Chen's saber had already severed his neck. His head flew into the air, but before it could get far, Long Chen turned his wrist and slashed his saber through it. Another peak expert fell. At the same time as Long Chen killed the 2 of them, he had to take 4 attacks. Shui Yu's sword almost cut him in half. Shui Yu's peak-grade treasure item was still fine. He had sacrificed the evil dragon bone claw, while Yu Changhao had sacrificed his wings to keep his weapon intact. Right now, the only ones remaining were Shui Yu, Yu Changhao, Ka Wutu, and Ji Changkong. Ji Changkong was the most treacherous one. When blocking Long Chen's double dragon destruction, he had intentionally taken a step back and stood behind the foolish Ka Wutu. As a result, the cutting board was truly effective, managing to save his life. Although his treasure item had still been broken in the collision, Ka Wutu had at least saved his life. As for Ka Wutu, his corpse had been completely destroyed, revealing his true body. All his spiritual yuan had been sucked dry by the corpse, and right now, he was fighting with a high-grade treasure item. Seeing Long Chen be repeatedly injured delighted Shui Yu and the others. Without spiritual yuan, there was no way for them to recover, so taking injuries at this time could be fatal. But their hearts quickly turned cold. Long Chen's injuries disappeared in the blink of an eye. There wasn't even a scar. If it weren't for his torn clothes and bloodstains, they might even think their eyes had broken. The reason why Long Chen dared to take all these injuries was because he had the primal chaos bead and its monstrous healing capability. At this time, its healing ability was practically heaven-defying. Meng Qi and the others were blocking the corrupt path and ancient races experts from assisting. Fortunately, the righteous experts had disappeared. However, Meng Qi was aware of the truth. The truth was that they were pretending to be dead by lying on the ground. Some of them even dug their way into the ground. It seemed that if Long Chen won, they wouldn't do anything. But if Ji Changkong won, they would suddenly revive from the dead. Although this kind of conduct was contemptuous, it was a good thing for Meng Qi and the others. Boom. Suddenly, Ka Wutu's club was split apart by Long Chen's attack and he was knocked back, vomiting blood. Long Chen naturally wouldn't give up on this opportunity, and he appeared in front of Ka Wutu like a phantom, once more slashing with his sword. "You idiot Long Chen, why don't you go kill the others? Are you treating me like an easy target?" roared Ka Wutu furiously. Ka Wutu suddenly reached into his own chest. Blood splashed as he ripped out his own heart. Ka Wutu crushed his own heart, and a blood diagram appeared in front of him. At the same time, Ka Wutu's vitality rapidly declined. Devil blood sacrifice. The void erupted as a huge figure appeared. A fist bigger than a house smashed toward Long Chen. A figure appeared out of nowhere and smashed its fist toward Long Chen. Long Chen's expression changed as he recognized this figure. Boom. Long Chen was sent flying. That berserk power seemed like it could shatter heaven and earth. Long Chen shot across the ground, leaving behind a long ditch. This sudden change shocked everyone. Whether it was Shui Yu, Yu Changhao, or Ji Changkong, they looked at that figure with shock as well as complete terror. Flame. Flame Devil. Shui Yu and Yu Changhao also recognized this figure. It had 2 horns on its bullish head. Its 300-meter body had scarlet runes circulating around it like surging lava. Long Chen, Shui Yu, and Yu Changhao were the most terrified ones out of them all. Back when they had fought in the Coffin region, they had inadvertently broken its seal, releasing this ancient devil. Back then, they had almost been killed by it. They had miserably fled and barely escaped with their lives. Just thinking about that made their hearts palpitate. This musclehead Ka Wutu had actually been hiding such a terrifying trump card. "Lord Flame Devil, I've sacrificed my heart's essence blood to you. I ask you to kill this brat," shouted Ka Wutu. When everyone looked at Ka Wutu, they were startled to see that practically all his blood chi had vanished. Even the flame of his life was exceedingly weak, looking like it might extinguish at any time. It seemed Ka Wutu had paid an extremely steep price to summon the Flame Devil. Once this battle was over, Ka Wutu would basically be crippled for the rest of his life. "You released me, so I promised to help you out once. I won't eat my words." That huge flame devil actually opened its mouth and spat out human words. Its voice resounded throughout the air, shaking people's eardrums. The flame devil suddenly reached out a hand and caught Ka Wutu, throwing him in his mouth. Crunch. Ka Wutu's startled cry rang out for a moment before the sound of bones breaking rang out. Everyone's hair stood on end and they became covered in sweat. "Our agreement's complete. I'll kill him for you, and we'll owe each other nothing." The flame devil finished swallowing Ka Wutu and turned to look at Long Chen. The flame devil had escaped its prison, but it had still been bound by its seal. It had only been able to move within a small region. Ka Wutu had heard of its release, and once he had advanced to become a rank 4 celestial and his corpse devil blood had awoken, he had the courage to try seeing if he could subdue the flame devil. Amongst his ancestors was an almighty expert who had specialized in controlling corpses and devils, so he possessed a special kind of energy. He could also use this energy as feed for devils to make them obedient. However, Ka Wutu had underestimated the flame devil's terror. As soon as he had tried placing a slave mark, the flame devil had gone crazy. Long Chen's saber managed to strike the flame devil, but the flame devil's palm also struck him. Long Chen felt like every bone in his body had broken, and he vomited blood. Long Chen! Tang Wanner shot over. Just as she was reaching out to catch him, her expression changed. Hastily forming hand seals, a dozen wind nets appeared in front of her, catching Long Chen. Those sturdy wind nets were pierced through, but Long Chen's speed dropped slightly. Only then did Tang Wanner reach out to catch him. However, she still felt as if a mountain had struck her and they both flew back. Tang Wanner only managed to stabilize 100 miles away. Everyone was horrified by how powerful the flame devil was. The situation had once more changed. Everyone stopped fighting to stare at the flame devil. It only had eyes for Long Chen. The ancient race experts flocked toward Yu Changhao, and the corrupt paths experts all surged toward Shuiyu. Countless dead people flew out of the ground and regrouped with Ji Changkong. Long Chen was still hacking up blood. The flame devil's power simply was too much. Boss! Guoran and the others saw that Long Chen's injuries were terrifying. Practically all his bones were covered in cracks. Long Chen took a deep breath. He looked inside the primal chaos space. As he drew out its life energy to heal, he saw that all the huge trees had withered by the time he fully recovered. After such a long battle and after taking so many injuries, the huge trees were finally unable to bear it. Furthermore, Long Chen's physical body was stronger than before, meaning he needed more life energy to heal. This was the last time he could heal. The flame devil roared and once more charged at Long Chen. It had to fulfill its obligations and kill Long Chen before it could regain its freedom. "Boss, what should we do?" asked Guoran urgently. "Wild, you lead everyone to block it for a moment." "I need time to launch a big move," said Long Chen. He took a deep breath. "All right." Wild shot forward, immediately using the barbarian blood bronze body. "Hey, I wasn't finished talking yet. Quick, go help him." "Stall for me," said Long Chen. Meng Qi, Tang Wanner, Yu Zifeng, Song Mingyuan, Li Qi, and Guoran all flew out, along with the 3 earth dragons and the red-eye sacred blood phoenix. Boom. Wild had already exchanged blows with the flame devil. On the entire battlefield, Wild was the one with the greatest power right now, with the exception of the flame devil. He had been making up for his exhaustion the entire time. As soon as he stopped fighting, he would take out more food. This huge battle had caused him to use up all his rations now. However, his power was still at its peak. Regretfully, even in his peak state, he couldn't stop the flame devil. In their first exchange, he was blown back, his hand bleeding. But he continued charging forward. Fortunately, at this time, everyone else arrived. Treasure items flew through the air, unleashing powerful attacks. Combined with the 4 magical beasts, they were just barely able to stop the flame devil. However, the flame devil's power surpassed their imaginations. Other than Wild, who was able to take a head-on blow, the others couldn't stop him without combining all their efforts. Despite working together, there was the danger of being killed at any moment. Gu Yang was almost killed by an attack, but Meng Qi sacrificed a high-grade treasure item to block the flame devil for him. That treasure item exploded upon being struck by the flame devil's fist. The fortunate thing was that they were rich now. Each one of them had several high-grade treasure items. After a while, sacrificing those treasure items was the only way for them to hold back the flame devil. Even Meng Qi's 8th-rank Earth Dragon could be killed in one shot by the flame devil. Looking at them fighting such a bloody, dangerous battle, the aboriginals all clenched their fists. But they were powerless to assist. They had the heart but not the power. Suddenly, the flame devil roared and sent Wild flying. The bones of his shoulder broke through his skin, but Wild continued to fight. However, the difference in power was starting to show itself. With another fist, it sent Wild flying once more. 2 globes of light appeared in its hands, and it suddenly merged them together. A berserk aura erupted. "Despicable humans, you can all die." The flame devil slammed the combined globe into the ground, and a sensation of death filled Meng Qi and the others. Raging flame prison. Just as that fierce attack was about to erupt, divine chanting filled the air. The globe the flame devil had summoned was created from his core energy. It had been angered at being held back and grew impatient, so it had been preparing to unleash one of its ultimate attacks. Once that attack was unleashed, it was confident that it could kill all the ants stopping it. This attack wasn't something the flame devil could unleash whenever it wanted. If it hadn't been angered at being held back, it wouldn't have been willing to sacrifice its core energy like this. Just as its attack was about to erupt, countless flame runes condensed in the air around it. Columns of flames soared into the air, forming a mile-long prison that trapped it at the center. It was at this moment that the flame devil's attack erupted. Boom! Meng Qi's earth dragon used its huge body to block the attack for everyone. But the explosion of that globe was too terrifying. The earth dragon was turned into a bloody mess. Even its insides were leaking, and it was pushed to the brink of death. However, with it blocking for them, everyone else only suffered some injuries. Meng Qi felt a burst of pain. Just now, she hadn't ordered the earth dragon to block for them. She had been preparing to use the soul-suppressing tower to block it. But the earth dragon had been worried she would suffer a backlash and charged in front of her, causing her to feel both moved and guilty. She hastily returned it to her spiritual space. Fortunately, the earth dragon possessed a trace of the dragon race's bloodline. Its body was extremely powerful. Although it was on the brink of death, it wouldn't die. But recovering would definitely take a long time. In truth, the main reason Meng Qi and the others were able to survive was because of the raging flame prison. It had received the majority of the impact. What the earth dragon had received was nothing more than some aftershocks. Long Chen was covered in sweat. What leftover spiritual yuan he had was now sucked up by the raging flame prison. The fortunate thing was that using the Nirvana scripture didn't require his spiritual yuan. As the chanting resounded throughout the air, all the flame energy in the world surged into his flame prison. Everyone help! Raging flame death blow. Long Chen suddenly changed his hand seals, and the prison began to rapidly shrink. Long Chen wanted to use the Nirvana scripture to crush the flame devil to death. Meng Qi and the others all rushed over beside him. Placing their hands on his backs, they poured in what remaining spiritual yuan they had into his body. The flame devil let out a furious roar and went all out attacking the flame prison. However, it was unable to break it. When Long Chen had used the raging flame prison before, its flame chains had only been the width of a finger. But now, each one of those flame chains was as thick as a person's waist. It was unknown just how many times stronger it was. The power of the raging flame prison was directly related to the quality of the flame it used. Hua Long had now devoured another stronger earth flame, making its power soar. That combined with the Nirvana scripture allowed Long Chen to trap this incomparably powerful flame devil. Ants, the supreme devil race can't be trapped by the likes of you. The flame devil roared, unleashing berserk attacks against the flame prison. Once the flame prison had shrunk to the same size as the flame devil, it stopped shrinking. It was unable to compress the flame devil any further as it crazily struggled. Furthermore, it would occasionally expand and shrink again. All tribesmen move out. The Stone Tribe's leader was the first to charge over. Placing a hand on Gu Yang's back, he poured in his own energy through Gu Yang. Although their combat power was reduced by the curse, they had plenty of spiritual yuan. Following the Stone Tribe's leader, the others also shot into motion. Placing their hands on the backs of whoever was in front, hundreds of sea expansion experts sent all their Dantian's energy to Long Chen without reserve. 10,000 streams formed a river, 100 rivers formed a sea. All the aboriginals, regardless of cultivation base, passed on their spiritual yuan. After such an intense battle, the warriors of the aboriginals had lost 2/3 of their number. Now, they numbered less than 100,000. But for almost 100,000 experts to send their spiritual yuan to him, Long Chen immediately felt the pressure lighten. Although this kind of spiritual yuan transmission was extremely crude and lost 90% of the energy in the process, with their numbers, it was still an extremely powerful force. Long Chen concentrated all this energy into compressing the raging flame prison. Damnable ants, the noble devil race won't submit to you. The raging flame prison rapidly shrank to 150 meters. The flame devil wasn't able to move any longer. Furthermore, as it shrank, its power only grew. For the flame devil to once more expand the prison would be very difficult. Longchen, are you alright? How about I also help you? Suddenly, the distant Shuiyu sneered, causing Longchen and the others' expressions to change. Shuiyu formed hand seals and an illusory figure appeared behind him. That was the image of a fiend. Its long hair touched the ground, and long tusks protruded out of its mouth. It appeared incredibly lifelike. It immediately took out a dagger and left a cut on its long tongue. Black blood flowed out. As that black blood flowed out, Shuiyu's third eye opened. A bizarre rune surfaced in his eye, and that black blood landed on it. Yama King Blood Curse. A fiendish image shot out of his third eye and at Longchen. The entire world became full of death chi like it was cursed. The Yama King Blood Curse made this world seem like hell on earth, and whether ally or enemy, everyone felt their hair stand on end. It felt like their souls were about to be squeezed out of them. Long Chen's arm shook and Lei Long shot out. This was a trump card Long Chen had been holding back specifically to handle Shuiyu's Yama King Blood Curse. Shuiyu's curse arts were too bizarre and too insidious. He was able to curse a person to death. Although Long Chen had gone all out with the double dragon destruction previously, he had still told the two dragons to preserve a tenth of their energy. This cautiousness was now proved to be the right choice. His luck was always lacking, so rather than hoping that he would be lucky and nothing bad would happen, he would rather have the strength to handle things when they did happen. Hua Long had been used to condense the flame prison, while Lei Long was used to block the curse. Lei Long came from the nine heavens tribulation lightning. It was a supreme yang existence, a direct counter to Shuiyu's curses. Although it only had a tenth of its power, Long Chen was sure that destroying Shuiyu's curse would be no problem for it. Long Chen had no time to pay attention after sending out Lei Long. He went all out trying to kill the flame devil. He had to kill it as fast as possible, or if Shuiyu once more attacked, it would be troublesome. Long Chen, let me help you as well, ha, Ji Changkong suddenly laughed. He took out a yellow scroll that emitted an ancient and desolate aura. Spatial displacement. Ji Changkong smiled sinisterly. A rune appeared in his hand, and he pressed it against the ancient scroll. A ray of light shot out at Lei Long's space twisted and Lei Long vanished from their sights. When it reappeared, it was tens of thousands of miles away. Haha, Dai Long Chen, laughed Ji Changkong. The ancient scroll in his hand turned to dust. It was a one-time use item. It didn't normally have any use at all, but now, it became the best trump card to kill Long Chen. This sudden change caught even Long Chen off guard. By the time he realized what was happening, the Yama King Blood Curse was right in front of him. Long Chen's mind turned blank. This kind of curse could not be dodged. There needed to be someone to take his place for it, or it would continue chasing him forever. If he tried using the lightning body blink, it was true he could escape it. By flying into the midst of the corrupt path, finding a scapegoat was easy. But if he did that, all his previous efforts would be wasted. The raging flame prison would instantly collapse, and they would have to face the flame devil's merciless slaughter. Caught between a rock and a hard place, Long Chen didn't know what he should choose. A roar reverberated throughout the air. Don't! Long Chen suddenly cried out. His spiritual space fluctuated and a snow-white figure appeared in front of Long Chen. The Yama King Blood Curse instantly struck its body. No! Long Chen let out a heart-rending cry. And as a result of his chaotic mental state, his spiritual strength became unsteady and the raging flame prison exploded. Everyone was sent flying by a shockwave. Long Chen tightly held Little Snow. His gaze was rapidly growing dim. Little Snow, you can't die. Feeling Little Snow's vitality rapidly fading, Long Chen felt like vipers were biting his heart. Little Snow licked Long Chen's face and then turned limp. Right before dying, his final message was, "If there is another life, I would want to be with you again." Ah! Long Chen roared. Killing intent filled the entire world. The winds and clouds changed color. His fury had reached a kind of pinnacle. He thought of how Little Snow had been with him ever since he was the size of a palm. He thought of how little Snow had risked life and limb to cross thousands of miles to find him as just a cub. Countless scenes surfaced in his mind. Die, you damnable ant! Having escaped its prison, the flame devil smashed its fist at Long Chen. Suddenly, a barrier of light surrounded Long Chen, blocking the flame devil's attack. You should let me handle this, sighed the Eastern Wasteland Belle. It was just about to take action. Fuck off. You just watched as little Snow died? I don't need the help of a bastard like you. Tears streamed down Long Chen's eyes. Little Snow's death caused him to go completely crazy. Long Chen's blood chi began to boil. It was like a wild dragon was awakening. A divine and terrifying aura erupted. Something inside Long Chen's body seemed to break. Blood chi crazily erupted and shockingly, his skin began to crack. Blood poured out, dyeing his entire blood red. Long Chen, you're crazy. There's still a portion of the true dragon essence blood that you haven't finished refining. You'll die, roared the Eastern Wasteland Belle. Me being crazy is at least better than an emotionless bastard who just watches as others die. Long Chen roared back. He was full of hate. He hated the Eastern Wasteland Belle. It clearly possessed the ability to save little Snow but had chosen to just watch. He hated Shuiyu. He hated Ji Changkong. He hated the Flame Devil. He hated every one of his enemies, wishing to bite them to death. He hated the heavens. He hated them for being unfair, for always targeting him. They didn't just want to exterminate him but also take away every person by his side. He also hated himself. He hated his weakness. He had clearly accounted for every possible thing, but he had still been one move off, causing little Snow to sacrifice his life. As Long Chen furiously roared, his blood chi continued to boil and all his skin split apart. His bloody appearance was ghastly. Long Chen. Seeing Long Chen in his crazy state, they felt like blades were stabbing their hearts. They all knew about the deep feelings between Long Chen and little Snow. They knew what kind of pain he must be feeling right now. Although Long Chen liked to laugh and joke normally, he cared deeply about every single person by his side. He would be willing to put his life on the line for any one of them, willing to fight against any powerful enemies. But he wasn't able to endure the pain of losing someone close to him. Green Dragon Battle Armor, get the hell out here. Long Chen roared furiously, and more blood gushed out of him. Even the ground around him turned scarlet. Boom. The entire eastern section of the immemorial path trembled intensely. With Long Chen at the center, a huge chi pillar soared into the sky, blowing apart the clouds. What? Shuiyu, Ji Changkong, and Yu Changhao were all horrified. He had clearly already reached his peak power. So how was it that his power was now suddenly growing so explosively? At the same time, within the boundless cosmos, a pair of large eyes slowly opened. The gaze pierced through countless stars to look into a world that looked like a speck of dust. Too slow. The master of those eyes indifferently sighed and once more closed its eyes, as if unconcerned with anything. As the huge chi pillar soared into the clouds, it was like the boulders became weightless. They began to float into the sky, and then in front of everyone's appalled gazes, they were crushed into nothingness. This is too crazy. Are all young people this brainless now? They'll throw their lives away at a whim. Or is it that I really have become old and can't keep up with the ages? Looking at Long Chen covered in blood, the Eastern Wasteland Belle sighed. Boom. Suddenly, another explosion shook the land. A huge storm erupted and then disappeared just as fast. The dust in the air settled, and the world returned to calm. What? When the dust settled and they saw that figure, everyone was shocked. Long Chen was covered in green scales, a dragon-shaped mark on his forehead. The divine aura he was releasing made it feel like he truly was a reincarnated dragon. Kill! Long Chen's roar was like thunder through the air. With a single stamp of the foot, he arrived in front of the Flame Devil. There was no longer any aura coming from his body, nor were there any spiritual yuan fluctuations, as his spiritual yuan was completely exhausted. The only thing left to him was the power of his physical body. In his rage, in his fury, in his craziness, Long Chen had instantly refined the remaining 20% of the green dragon essence blood to summon the dragon blood body tempering art's strongest state, the green dragon battle armor. According to his normal speed, Long Chen would have needed 2 or 3 more months to refine the rest of the essence blood. For him to instantly refine it all was truly impetuous. But Long Chen was in a berserk state. He hated the Eastern Wasteland Belle for not helping, and so he wanted to personally get revenge for Little Snow. The fortunate thing was that Long Chen's body was strong enough to bear the impact of refining the remaining essence blood. The reason why his skin had split apart was because the dragon blood body tempering art's goal was to force out his ordinary blood. Once all his blood contained dragon blood essence, he could finally summon the green dragon battle armor. He was now completely covered in dragon scales, and even without any spiritual yuan supporting him, just the dragon blood flowing within him gave him endless energy. Boom! Long Chen's fist collided with the Flame Devil's fist. What startled everyone was that cracking sounds rang out as the Flame Devil's arm broke. Its huge body shot back, tumbling across the ground. Return Little Snow's life. Long Chen's voice was full of killing intent, and he chased. He caught its tail. The Flame Devil was smashed into the ground repeatedly by Long Chen. The ground crumbled with each smash. The Flame Devil roared, and a huge globe condensed in its mouth. This was one of its innate divine abilities. But before it could release it, Long Chen kicked his jaw. A muffled bang rang out as the globe exploded in its mouth. The Flame Devil's jaw blew off. Half its head collapsed. That had been an extremely powerful attack, and for it to explode inside its own body, its destructive power was horrifying. Die! Long Chen jumped up, and with his hands clasped, he smashed them toward the Flame Devil's forehead. Boom! The Flame Devil's huge head exploded from Long Chen's attack. Broken bones and fresh blood flew through the air. Long Chen stood on top the Flame Devil's corpse, his scales flickering. Kill! Even after killing the Flame Devil, Long Chen's fury didn't lessen. He shot toward the distant Yu Changhao. He had no spiritual yuan and couldn't use his movement technique. But just relying on the power of his physical body, his speed was not slower than before. He arrived in front of Yu Changhao in an instant, smashing his fist at him. Yu Changhao was horrified. As soon as Long Chen had looked at him, he had begun fleeing. Not only were the ancient races retreating, but even the corrupt path was running. As for the righteous experts, they had long since disappeared. It went without saying that righteous experts were blessed with the best vision. As soon as Long Chen had sent the Flame Devil flying with a single punch, they had begun stealthily slipping away. As for the ancient races and the corrupt path, they had just been foolishly watching. Only now that Long Chen had turned his sights to them did they recover from their dumbfounded state. Yu Changhao hastily circulated his essentially exhausted spiritual yuan to activate his bao. This peak-grade treasure item bao was blown apart with a single blow because it didn't have enough spiritual yuan supporting it. At the same time, Yu Changhao's body exploded. Now that Long Chen had summoned the green dragon battle armor, the power of his physical body could no longer be described as human. With the power of a green dragon supporting him, no one could stop him. The bao was shattered, and the person was dead. The ancient race's peak experts had all fallen now. Within Long Chen's primal chaos space, another heavenly Dao fruit appeared on the heavenly Dao tree. This heavenly Dao fruit had 4 Dao marks. But Long Chen was still lost in the pain of losing Little Snow. He didn't even notice that. The only thing in his heart was a desire to slaughter. He wanted to slaughter all his enemies. The other ancient race experts were fleeing for their lives. Long Chen was just about to chase them when he felt the world spinning around him. He almost collapsed on the ground. His scales vanished and the feeling of boundless energy also vanished. Long Chen felt a bout of weakness overwhelm him. He didn't even have the power to stand. Long Chen. 2 soft bodies caught Long Chen. Once the scales vanished, it revealed Long Chen's original body, covered in blood. Seeing him in that state caused Meng Qi and Tang Wanner to softly weep. I want to see Little Snow. He had terrified his enemies, but Long Chen was still lost in his sorrow. Little Snow was his companion who had been with him from the start. But they had been parted just like this. No matter how many enemies he killed, he wouldn't be able to revive Little Snow. He tenderly rubbed Little Snow's head. Little Snow was lying on the ground, looking extremely peaceful. It was like he was just sleeping. Despite trying to hold back his tears, he couldn't stop them. Little Snow was motionless. He would never move again. Meng Qi, Tang Wana, Gu Yang, Yu Zifeng, Guoran, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan were also crying. Little Snow wasn't just Long Chen's house pet. He had been a companion who had fought through life and death with them. We'll definitely kill all those bastards for Little Snow. Especially that bastard Ji Changkong. I'll tear him to pieces. Guoran clenched his teeth. If it hadn't been for Ji Changkong who had teleported away Lei Long, Little Snow wouldn't have died. 8 peak experts had joined hands to kill Long Chen. But 6 of them had been killed. Right now, the only ones remaining were Shui Yu and Ji Changkong. The debt for killing Little Snow would have to fall to them. Furthermore, they were the main ringleaders that caused Little Snow's death. Regretfully, they had already fled. Ji Changkong had fled especially early, and if the 2 of them wanted to hide in the huge immemorial path, it would be basically impossible to find them. Long Chen, don't feel too bad. In truth, I wanted to interfere back then. But Little Snow stopped me. You've been with Little Snow for so long, so I'm sure you understand what he was thinking. The Eastern Wasteland Bell sighed. Long Chen nodded. His fury had passed, so his rationality had returned. Little Snow had already been aware that it wasn't able to keep up. He had used this method to choose his own way to leave, giving himself a dignified death. With Little Snow present, Long Chen wouldn't accept other house pets. Thus, Little Snow had chosen to leave so that Long Chen could find a stronger helper. Little Snow didn't want to implicate Long Chen. But Long Chen only felt grief. Had Little Snow really thought that once he was dead, he would be able to accept new house pets? An indescribable sorrow filled him. Little Snow didn't understand him well enough. But a scarlet crystal core appeared in front of Long Chen. Long Chen's expression became furious. Don't get mad. Although Little Snow died, I sealed his soul and memories in his crystal core. In the future, if you can find a magical beast with limitless potential, you can merge it with this crystal core. Then Little Snow could count as being reborn, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. Long Chen was delighted to hear that. He carefully received the crystal core. At the same time, he felt ashamed for his previous rudeness toward the Eastern Wasteland Bell. The battle's over. Everyone can go back and rest, suggested the Stone Tribe's leader. Everyone hastily began to clean up the battlefield. Within the Stone Tribe's ancestral land, Long Chen was sitting alone beside a small lake. He was as still as the motionless water. It had already been a month since the battle, and Long Chen had fully recovered. He had taken a great risk in summoning the Green Dragon battle armor last time, and although he had succeeded, it had been extremely damaging to his body. The Green Dragon essence blood had been so domineering that it had almost broken his meridians. Fortunately, the Flame Devil's corpse had been thrown into the primal chaos space and devoured by the Black Soul, giving him enough life energy to recover. Guoran and the others fully recovered in less than 3 days. After refining the rank 4 heavenly Dao fruits Long Chen had given them, they had all become rank 4 celestials. The high-spirited Guoran had just been about to lead everyone to look for Shui Yu, Ji Changkong, and the others as revenge for Little Snow. But Long Chen had stopped him. There was no meaning behind such an action. As long as they weren't stupid, they would have hidden themselves. Trying to find someone who was hiding in a place as large as the immemorial path was no different than searching for a needle in an ocean. It was just a waste of time. Although Meng Qi and Tang Wanner had accompanied him while healing, Long Chen hadn't returned to his lively self. He gradually became a person who liked to be silent. Little Snow's death made him feel like a boulder was crushing his heart. It was hard for him to breathe. He gently rubbed the scarlet crystal core in his hand. That was Little Snow's crystal core. His memories and soul were sealed within it. Although he knew that if he could find a suitable house pet, he could erase that house pet's soul and allow Little Snow to be reborn, that didn't change the fact that Little Snow had died. Last time, it was Yi Zhiqiu and Lu Feng'er who had died. Yi Zhiqiu had been lucky, and a powerful expert had brought her away. Long Chen had sensed her aura, so he knew she had been reborn and was more powerful than ever. But Lu Feng'er was gone forever. Meng Qi hadn't been able to bear burying her, and she had instead used a crystal coffin to keep her body by her side forever. Legend said that if a corpse wasn't buried in the ground, its soul wouldn't enter the cycle of reincarnation. Then the soul would forever guard the person it was with. When Meng Qi thought no one was around, she would occasionally look at her dead sister and silently weep. Long Chen had noticed her several times like that, but he had never disturbed her. Everyone had their own weak spots. Everyone had times when they were helpless. But people could only do their best to hide their weaknesses and instead expose their sharp fangs as they fought against fate. Yi Zhiqiu had been lucky. Little Snow had also been lucky that the Eastern Wasteland Belle was present. But something like luck wasn't reliable. Long Chen wasn't someone who could hope to live off luck forever. Perhaps what is required is another reign of terror. Otherwise, some people will never learn their lesson and will constantly try to scheme against me behind my back, said Long Chen as he gently stroked Little Snow's crystal core. The Flame Devil had been killed. 6 of the 8 peak experts had been killed. But Long Chen was still filled with anger and sullenness. He just didn't know who his hate was targeted towards. He felt like he was a bloodthirsty devil king who had constantly been suppressing his own urge for slaughter. But now, he was feeling like he couldn't suppress it any longer. He had to release his true self. Senior, no matter how strong the enemies I encounter, you can still help me handle them, correct? Asked Long Chen. Of course. The Eastern Wasteland Belle's response was extremely direct. Then good. Next time, I'll let my name resound throughout the entire Martial Heaven continent. Whether it's a glorious name or an infamous name, I will make sure it becomes known through slaughter. I'll kill until those people scheming against me are finally afraid and will tremble upon hearing the name Long Chen. He continued to stroke Little Snow's crystal core gently, but his voice was full of killing intent. I know that persuading you is useless, but I'll just warn you one more time. Take it easy, said the Eastern Wasteland Belle a bit helplessly. To it, Long Chen was becoming more and more terrifying. Sometimes he was frighteningly calm, sometimes he was frighteningly crazy. Furthermore, he had found that Long Chen was a determined person. What he had decided, no one could change. Long Chen, suddenly, a soft voice rang out. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er walked over. They looked like 2 fairies who had walked out of a painting. They sat beside him, holding his arms. They were full of worry, as they had never seen Long Chen in such a slump. Little Snow's death had been a huge blow to him. Sorry, I've made you worry. Long Chen felt a bit guilty. Little Snow's death had been a constant weight on his mind, and this entire time, he hadn't been able to escape his sullen mood. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er had done their best to cheer him up during this time. In fact, they had even slept in the same bed with him, subtly indicating that they would have been willing to go through with certain acts. However, in his pain and guilt, Long Chen hadn't been interested. The 2 of them had been willing to break their promise with their other sisters in the hope that it would allow Long Chen to walk out of the shadow he was under. That made Long Chen grateful and ashamed. With his kind of conduct, he really had been blessed by his ancestors to have such beauties by his side. Long Chen, do you feel better? Asked Tang Wan'er. She and Meng Qi were the same. They were worried Long Chen would be affected by a heart devil. I'm better, everything's better. I've already thought things through. Long Chen smiled and pulled the 2 of them into his embrace. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er both blushed with his arms wrapped around their waists. His actions made a strange feeling rise in their hearts, one that was very warm and very safe. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er, one on the left and one on the right, leaned against Long Chen's chest. Seeing Long Chen smile, they felt like the light after the rain had finally appeared. Long Chen, you scoundrel, do you know how worried we were for you? While in Long Chen's embrace, Tang Wan'er gave him a vicious pinch. But Long Chen had finished refining the green dragon essence blood, so his body was extremely strong. Even if he didn't do anything to resist, treasure items wouldn't be able to easily injure him. After a few pinches and finding that she wasn't able to cause any damage, then seeing Long Chen's evil smile, Tang Wan'er suddenly opened her mouth. Aya! Long Chen let out a miserable cry. His earlobe had been bitten by Tang Wan'er ruthlessly. He found that even the dragon blood body tempering art had its flaws. The defense of his ears hadn't increased much at all, so being bitten was still very painful. Scoundrel, we were worried to death because of you. How can you smile? Tang Wan'er felt wronged. Although she was a fiery woman and very opinionated, her heart was entirely Long Chen's. For Long Chen to become silent and sullen, she had felt like the sky was falling. Suddenly, a warm mouth ruthlessly pressed against Tang Wan'er's lips. Her body shook as his smell entered her nose. She was instantly lost in that emotional feeling. She tightly held on to him when she suddenly realized something was off. She struggled to get away, but Long Chen held on tightly. After a moment, Aya, were you born in the year of the dog? Long Chen suddenly felt a burst of pain as his lips were bitten by Tang Wan'er. He even tasted blood. He had found another weak point in his defense. Bastard, how can you bully me right in front of Big Sister Meng Qi? Wait, no, even if Sister Meng Qi isn't here, you still can't bully me, cried Tang Wan'er. Her face was much thinner than Long Chen's. Although she had liked the feeling just now, Meng Qi had been right there. She would rather express her anger than express her willingness. Fine then. Long Chen directly turned to give Meng Qi a deep kiss. Meng Qi immediately turned red and tried to pull away, but how could she, a soul cultivator, escape his grasp? Bastard, release Big Sister Meng Qi. You can't bully her, shouted Tang Wan'er. Her fists were like a tempest of rain, but her attack power was essentially zero. She grabbed Long Chen's neck and began some familiar motions. Stop. Long Chen hastily let go of Meng Qi. Only then did Tang Wan'er take her mouth away from his ear. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er were both red. The three of them didn't say anything, instead just looking at each other. Long Chen suddenly burst into laughter. Scoundrel! They both reddened, but they were full of delight and hope. Long Chen had finally returned to normal, so they could finally put down their worries. The next few days were peaceful. The Stone Tribe leader handed all the spoils of the battlefield to Long Chen. Long Chen had his people pick out a portion of the treasure items useful to themselves, and the rest was all left to the Aboriginals. They also didn't keep a single medicinal pill. As for the people who had followed Fengyin to help, each one of them obtained 2 high-grade treasure items and several middle-grade ones. They were incredibly grateful, especially since they came from poor origins. They had never thought they would one day have a high-grade treasure item. Long Chen had taken less than 1% of the spoils, and the wealth left to the Aboriginals was truly an indescribable amount. That battle had been too immense. The Stone Tribe's leader knew Long Chen's character, so he didn't say anything. He directly gathered all the tribe leaders and gave him all the Yuan spirit stones they had in storage. Long Chen also didn't stand on courtesy and received them all. The days passed one by one. Long Chen was waiting for Lord Heaven-Eye's return. According to the Stone Tribe's leader, Lord Heaven-Eye had gone to another region, and no one knew when he would return. Only Lord Heaven-Eye had the ability to cross the barriers into other regions. Suddenly, there came a day when clouds filled the sky of the immemorial path. The void began to shake, and the jade tablets Long Chen and the others held lit up. It was time for everyone to leave. Boss, let's leave quickly and go for a slaughter, shouted Guoran. He summoned his armor, killing intent erupting out of him. He was ready for a good fight. Lord Heaven-Eye has returned. Just as everyone was about to activate their jade plates and leave, a shout rang out. Long Chen hastily stopped everyone. A path opened within the crowd, leading to the transportation formation. Lord Heaven-Eye had finally appeared. Lord Heaven-Eye. Long Chen quickly cupped his fists toward him. Long Chen was still grateful to him. If it hadn't been for the identity plate he had given him, he and Yu Shaoqian would have been killed back then. It was also because of Lord Heaven Eye's guidance that the Aboriginals had formed such a strong relationship with him. Long Chen was extremely moved by the Aboriginals. They were simple and honest. Compared to the righteous path which was filled with deception and internal conflict, Long Chen would prefer a place like this. I suppose I made it on time. Here, take this. Lord Heaven Eye looked weary from travel, but he tossed Long Chen a black jar, which had an ancient seal on it. It appeared to have been sealed for countless years. 10,000 spirit blood? This fellow knows how to spend wealth. Long Chen, what he's giving you is a priceless treasure. This 10,000 spirit blood is an artificial spirit blood made during the immortal era. Although it's not on the same level as a true spirit blood, as long as a rank 4 celestial absorbs it, it will evolve into spirit blood that matches their elemental attribute, benefiting them for the rest of their life, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. Long Chen only heard the Eastern Wasteland Bell's voice after receiving the jar. When he did, he couldn't help but feel that it was incredibly heavy. Looking at Lord Heaven Eye's weary appearance, he didn't know what to say. Senior, did you leave in order to get this? A sour feeling welled up within Long Chen's heart. If Lord Heaven Eye hadn't left, then with his intelligence, he definitely would have seen through Ji Changkong's scheme. Then the hundreds of thousands of warriors from the Aboriginals wouldn't have been sacrificed. Child, don't overthink things. As an unrivaled heavenly genius, it is fated for you to rise like a shooting star. Considering the cycle of karma, everything that I've done is for us. The dragon swims through the sea, the peng flies through the clouds. We will definitely meet again one day. Lord Heaven Eye patted Long Chen on the shoulder like a kind elder comforting a child that was about to go on a long journey. Long Chen took a deep breath and put the black jar into the primal chaos space. He bowed deeply toward Lord Heaven Eye. Following him, Meng Qi and the others also bowed. This kindness is something I, Long Chen, will remember. I'm confident as well that we will meet again. Xiao Fei and the others waved goodbye as fiercely as they could. Long Chen's unrivaled appearance during that shocking battle had made him the idol of every youngster. Now that their idol was leaving, they were full of unwillingness. Long Chen swept his gaze over their reluctant eyes. After that, he finally steeled himself and crushed his jade plate. A rune erupted out of it and enveloped him. He instantly disappeared from their sight. One after another, they disappeared. They couldn't help but feel disappointed and frustrated. Don't sigh. The current immemorial path is not the old immemorial path. Because Long Chen tore apart the dome of the heavens, he has released the aura of the outside world. The energy and laws that the immemorial path was lacking have been made up for. In other words, our cultivation bases will no longer be suppressed to the foundation forging realm. Work hard on cultivating and stepping into higher realms. Long Chen might need us one day. Lord Heaven Eye looked up at the sky, a faint smile on his face. Long Chen felt his feet hit the ground. He was standing in the midst of the original entrance. When he had entered, there had been a sea of people. But now that he was coming out, there were pitifully few people present. The occasional people that were present all looked at Long Chen like he was a demon and instantly fled. People appeared one by one. However, Fengyin didn't appear as he didn't come from this entrance. Of the people that had helped Long Chen, only 5 had come from this side. After exiting, they waved goodbye to Long Chen. Boss, something's wrong, said Guoran as he looked around. Yes, I agree. Why didn't the various sects send experts to receive us? Did something happen? Long Chen nodded in agreement. The fact that Ji Changkong and the others weren't present was very normal. They had most likely immediately rushed out of the immemorial path and fled. Long Chen had thought that Ji Changkong would ally himself with the various sects' experts to surround him and attack. But this was out of his expectations. But the righteous sects hadn't sent anyone to receive their disciples. Even Ouyang Chuyu wasn't present. That was curious. Let's go. We can ask around once we return to the Shintian Dao sect. Meng Qi summoned the Red-Eye Sacred Blood Phoenix. Under her constant care during this time, the Blood Phoenix had broken through to reach the 8th rank. The 8th rank Blood Phoenix was even larger and faster than before. The 3 spatial storms they met were easily pierced through. In just a day, they reached the Xiantian Dao sect's territory. But as soon as they arrived, a loud alert rang out. The Xiantian Dao sect's Grand Protective Formation activated, shocking everyone. What was going on? Who dares to attack the Xiantian Dao sect? An icy shout rang out from within the formation. A white-robed elder stood within it, staring vigilantly at the red-eyed sacred blood phoenix. Although he didn't recognize it, he could sense how terrifying it was. Long Chen jumped off and looked inside the formation. There were only 6 sea expansion experts inside that he could see. He frowned. Why were there so few people inside the sect? Furthermore, he saw that many places showed signs of damage and were in the midst of being repaired. It was like an immense battle had been fought here. I am Long Chen. Release the Grand Formation, shouted Long Chen. He recognized that person. He was from the Shui family and was at the peak of sea expansion. He had once been in the running for the Shui family's future head. But this person had repeatedly targeted Shui Wuhan, and in her fury, she had left the Shui family to go to the 36th Super Monastery. Who? You are Long Chen? Who knows whether or not you're a fake? This is an extremely tense time, so you can't enter the sect for now. He shouted. But he was clearly a bit panicked. Courting death. Long Chen snorted and flew forward. He smashed a single fist onto the Grand Protective Formation, and it shattered. Long Chen, are you rebelling? Pow. His reply was a slap in the face. He vomited blood and all his teeth shot out. He fainted. This was after Long Chen had held back. If he had increased his power just a bit, that old man's head would have exploded. Speak, what happened? Long Chen turned to look at the other 5 sea expansion experts. Seeing Long Chen shatter the Grand Protective Formation with a single punch, they were all horrified. One of them hastily said, "A month ago, the corrupt path gathered all their power and, the truth was that a month ago, the corrupt path had suddenly launched a sneak attack on the 36 super monasteries as well as the Xiantian Dao sect. This sneak attack was of an unprecedented scale. All the corrupt path's elites had moved out. They had caused heavy casualties to the Xiantian Dao sect, and the entire righteous path entered a state of battle. No one knew who would be the next target. Fortunately, the majority of the 36 super monasteries' elites had been gathered at the Xiantian Dao sect. That was a joint agreement between the monastery heads, as they were part of a welcoming ceremony for the sect master. Ouyang Qiuyu had left for a trip to the Central Plains after sending Long Chen and the others into the immemorial path. This was an official meeting that happened once every 4 years. The various sect masters would report what had happened during this time, and after that, the head sect would give them various material benefits. That was something very much worthy of celebration to their branch sect. In past years, there had never been a problem. Only this time did the corrupt path suddenly launch a berserk attack that caused the 36 super monasteries to suffer tragic losses. As for the Xiantian Dao sect, the attack on it had been so fierce that the Grand Protective Formation had been destroyed. Their enemies' cultivation bases had just been too high. The vice sect master and Shui Wuhan, who had just advanced to foundation forging, had gone all out, and only then had they managed to make sure the Xiantian Dao sect wasn't completely destroyed. But the sect had suffered unprecedented damage. The vice sect master had died, and Shui Wuhan had taken heavy injuries under the attack of 2 foundation forging experts. In that incredibly critical moment, Ouyang Qiuyu had actually returned a day early. When she saw her home was under siege, she had furiously slaughtered her enemies. The corrupt path had immediately retreated when Ouyang Qiuyu had arrived. But Ouyang Qiuyu had still managed to slaughter a huge mass of their experts. Seeing the half-destroyed Xiantian Dao sect, learning the vice sect master had died, and finding that Shui Wuhan's soul had been injured and she had descended into slumber, Ouyang Qiuyu had exploded in fury. She had immediately sent out a call to summon all the Righteous Path's experts to launch a counterattack. But what infuriated her even more was that all the various large sects found convenient excuses not to help her. She realized these opportunists had decided that the Xiantian Dao sect's core had been too heavily damaged by this attack and would quickly collapse. so they didn't want to get too close to the Xiantian Dao sect. Even amongst those smaller sects under the Xiantian Dao sect's protection, only a few of them supported them with their full power. Furious, just like that, Ouyang Chuyu led the Xiantian Dao sect's surviving elites and a pitiful number of experts to slaughter a path into the corrupt path's territory. Apparently, Ouyang Chuyu had attacked 3 of the corrupt path's smaller strongholds, and in the midst of conquering the 4th stronghold, she had encountered a large-scale counterattack by the corrupt path. Both sides were in a deadlock. Hearing that Shui Wuhan had been injured, Long Chen immediately rushed to her side. Shui Wuhan was pale and withered, with death qi over her forehead. She was pitifully haggard. When Long Chen arrived, a maid was in the midst of feeding Shui Wuhan medicine with a small spoon. She couldn't swallow, so she could only allow the medicinal liquid to enter bit by bit. Long Chen suddenly grabbed the bowl of medicine. He looked at it with a bewildered expression of disbelief. Sniffing it, he shouted, "Who prepared this medicine?" Long Chen's shout was full of killing intent. The 3 monastery heads who had led Long Chen to this room all jumped. Long Chen's killing intent was absolutely terrifying. It was berserk and icy. They felt like the tips of millions of blades were pointed toward them, and with a single thought, those blades would pierce their bodies. "I don't know," said the maid. She was pale. With her Xiantian cultivation base, in front of the current Long Chen, even just speaking was extremely difficult. Monastery head Shui Qingfeng was in charge of it. "Could it be?" muttered one of the 3 monastery heads. "Bring that idiot over," said Long Chen icily. One of the monastery heads obediently ran off. Long Chen put aside the bowl of medicinal and gently placed a medicinal pill into Shui Wuhan's mouth. Her face had lost all signs of life right now. Wrinkles she had never possessed had appeared. "Let me." Meng Qi gently pressed her hand over Shui Wuhan's forehead. Her spiritual strength carefully entered her body. Shui Wuhan's spiritual strength had been essentially exhausted now. She had reached the point of a lamp out of oil. Without more spiritual strength to nourish her, her soul would have completely dissipated. Because her spiritual strength had dried up, Meng Qi had to give her new spiritual strength slowly and carefully. Finally, her spiritual strength gained control over part of Shui Wuhan's nerves, and she made Shui Wuhan swallow the medicinal pill Long Chen had given her. At the same time, Meng Qi's spiritual strength spread throughout Shui Wuhan's body. Her body was in a quasi-death state right now and needed to be awoken. The medicinal pill Long Chen had given her had been personally refined by him. Its medicinal effect was extremely strong. With Meng Qi's help, it was rapidly absorbed. A rosy color gradually appeared in her pale face. "Long Chen, what are you doing?" Shui Qingfeng was escorted over. Long Chen's slap hadn't just knocked him unconscious. He had also sealed his spiritual yuan, and he was powerless to resist. Long Chen didn't say a word. He directly pressed a finger against Shui Qingfeng's forehead. His spiritual strength erupted into Shui Qingfeng's mind-sea. Shui Qingfeng's body quivered, and then his eyes became distant. The other 3 monastery heads were horrified. Long Chen had directly used a soul search without saying anything. But they didn't dare say anything. They were aware of many things, and now that the Devil King Long Chen had returned, they didn't dare to go against him. Yu Deshui, Zhao Fu, Li Wenshao, Jiang Haoren. Long Chen listed off 17 names, causing the 3 monastery heads' hearts to pound. "Bring them all here." The 3 of them were shocked. Although those 3 weren't monastery heads, they possessed extremely high status in the Xiantian Dao sect. Some of them were even closely related by blood to Ouyang Chuyu. "There's no need for the 3 of you to do it. Guoran, Yu Zifeng, go with them and handle it," said Long Chen coldly. The 3 of them were helpless. Although Long Chen was just a disciple who had only recently entered Sea Expansion, and he also didn't possess an official post or status, they didn't dare to speak. They felt that if they did say something, Long Chen would directly kill them. They quickly led Guoran and Yu Zifeng away. The reason Long Chen wanted them dead was because they had participated in this matter. He didn't care what their goal was, but since they had clearly known that this would harm Shui Wuhan, He had decided they could disappear from this world forever. The most infuriating thing to him was that two of those people were from the law enforcement hall. They had both been bought by Shui Qingfeng. When Ouyang Qiuyu had left, Shui Wuhan had been unconscious from her heavy injuries. She had needed to rest her soul. Ouyang Qiuyu knew about the unending battles between the four families, so she had intentionally left some people to look after her. She had left behind 4 of the Shui family's monastery heads to look after the Xiantian Dao sect. She would never have imagined that Shui Qingfeng would actually be so deranged as to kill Shui Wuhan. He foolishly thought that once Shui Wuhan was dead, he would become the next Shui family head. For safety purposes, he had pulled in a large group of people. Using both threats and bribes, he had pulled them to his side. This way, once Shui Wuhan died, they could all testify that they had done their best, but Shui Wuhan's illness had suddenly taken a turn for the worse and she had died. The 3 monastery heads actually had known about this matter. They hadn't been willing to go along with it, but they also hadn't dared to go against Shui Qingfeng. It was precisely because they hadn't participated that they could keep their lives now. It's done. In less than an incense stick's worth of time, Guoran and the others returned. The 3 monastery heads were shocked. Amongst the people Long Chen had listed, 9 had been sea expansion experts. But they had been killed by a wave of the hand by Guoran. They probably hadn't even understood what was happening before they were killed. Furthermore, when Guoran killed people, he was frighteningly calm. It was like he was just killing ants. There was no change in his expression at all. Long Chen nodded and continued looking at Shui Wuhan. The medicinal energy was beginning to activate. Shui Qingfeng had been extremely sinister. He had added soul poison into her medicine. In the state where her soul was damaged, she needed slow nourishment. Although that poison's effect was extremely slow, it exhausted all her spiritual strength. Once she died, there would have been no way to find out what had been used. Chen. Suddenly, Shui Wuhan opened her eyes. Her originally bright eyes were dark now, and her voice was harsh to the ears. "Big sister, I'm here." Long Chen hastily held her hand. "You're back?" I was worried about you." A gratified expression appeared in her eyes. Her face twitched as if she was trying to smile, but with her corpse-like face, there was no way to do so. Seeing that Shui Wuhan had escaped death, Long Chen sighed with relief and almost teared up. Shui Wuhan had always looked after him like she was his big sister. Although she would occasionally act fierce and reprimand him, it was all for his own good. Big sister was useless. The Xiantian Dao sect was shamed. I failed the sect master's mission. Tears leaked out of Shui Wuhan's eyes. She felt extremely guilty for the Xiantian Dao sect's heavy losses. "Big sister, it's fine. This enmity is something I'll repay for you. Just peacefully heal. You're tired and sleepy. When you wake up, everything will be fine," said Long Chen softly. He glanced toward Meng Qi. She immediately understood and changed her spiritual strength. Shui Wuhan immediately felt a bout of sleepiness and fell into a deep slumber. "Get me a map and tell me where the sect master is." A monastery head immediately took out a map. Long Chen quickly saw his target. "I'm leaving my big sister with you. If something happens to her, don't even think about living. When I kill people, I don't need to give any reason." After saying that, Long Chen and the others jumped onto the red-eye sacred blood phoenix, flying northwards. Although he was a bit worried about Shui Wuhan, he knew that with his medicinal pill and the replenishment of Meng Qi's spiritual strength, she would quickly wake up. Once she was awake, although she wouldn't have her peak power, her safety would be guaranteed. Furthermore, he was also sure that those 3 wouldn't dare to do anything to Shui Wuhan. They didn't have the guts, otherwise, they would have been on the same side as Shui Qingfeng. It was precisely because they didn't have any guts that they hadn't participated in that matter. Right now, the Xiantian Dao sect's main power was attacking the Corrupt Path stronghold, and the disciples had been transported to a secret location. The current Xiantian Dao sect was almost an empty city. The Corrupt Path's power and attention were also concentrated on their strongholds, so the chance of them attacking the Xiantian Dao sect was essentially 0. Looking at the map, it seems it'll take around a day of flying. There aren't any spatial walls this time, so it'll be a calm journey. Don't waste this time. Everyone, start refining the 10,000 spirit blood I've given you. It shouldn't be anything hard for you. Work hard, because we're going to deal a vicious blow this time, said Long Chen. Long Chen had given a drop of the 10,000 spirit blood to each one of them before. On their way back, the spatial walls had been too disruptive to refine it. But now that there were no more disruptions, they couldn't waste any more time. They all took out a drop of violet blood. In truth, the 10,000 spirit blood was a kind of guiding medicine. Once experts refined it, it would excavate a person's potential, bringing out their greatest power. For example, a cultivator might only possess a trace of earth energy that was normally useless. In this case, cultivating any earth attribute battle skill would be very difficult. But once they refined the 10,000 spirit blood, that trace of energy would become even purer, and they would become a true earth attribute cultivator. Everyone began refining the 10,000 spirit blood. There was no reaction when it entered their bodies, and it quickly spread throughout every inch of them. The first one to cause a reaction was Tangwan. Her runes revolved around her. She was a powerful wind attribute cultivator, and the 10,000 spirit blood had only just entered her body when it merged with her wind energy. Practically invisible lines appeared on Tangwaner's runes. The 10,000 spirit blood was purifying her wind energy, and it was also changing it. Tangwaner originally possessed practically no spirit blood, but she gradually became able to control spirit blood power. It was like a seed had landed in fertile soil and begun to germinate. From now on, Tangwaner would become an expert in command of spirit blood, and an extremely terrifying wind attribute spirit blood at that. Her bloodline power would make her even stronger. Following her, Meng Qi, Yu Zifeng, Gu Yang, Song Mingyuan, Li Qi, and Guoran all entered similar states. There was no reaction after Wild consumed the 10,000 spirit blood. He just foolishly looked at Long Chen. Long Chen just smiled slightly. He had long since been prepared for this result. It wasn't strange. Wild's body was just too special. Long Chen looked into the distance, and killing intent surfaced in his eyes. It was time to flip the heavens. Kill! Blood splashed. Furious roars rang out. In front of thousands of corrupt experts, the Dragon Blood warriors were still releasing awe-inspiring killing intent. The Dragon Blood warriors were all at the peak of Xiantian. On a 1,000-mile battlefield, they were on the right wing, surrounded by a mass of corrupt experts. Over half of these corrupt experts had reached sea expansion. The intense battle dyed the yellow ground red. We can't continue like this. Fuck that Zhou bastard, he intentionally left us here to draw the majority of their forces. If this continues, we won't be able to hold on, roared one of the Dragon Blood Legion's squad leaders. The Dragon Blood Legion had been assigned to the right wing of the battlefield during the strategy meeting. Only once the battle began did they find out that the majority of their enemy's power was concentrated on them. At the front of the battlefield, Ouyang Chuyu was fighting two of the Corrupt Path's top experts. The void rumbled around them, making it so the others couldn't see their battle clearly. This was their third battle against this stronghold. The previous two times, the Righteous Path had been at an advantage. But this time, the Corrupt Path had clearly sent reinforcements. The Xintian Dao sect's experts were all here along with some smaller sect's experts. That was an extremely strong force. There was a group of sea expansion experts blocking the majority of the other sea expansion elites from the Corrupt Path, but the Corrupt Path just had too many sea expansion experts. As a result, quite a few of them managed to get by and attack the Dragon Blood Legion. What shocked everyone was that these peak Xiantian warriors were actually able to handle 10 times their number, even when half of those enemies were sea expansion experts. Although they weren't elite sea expansion experts, they still weren't things that Xiantian disciples should have been able to handle, especially not in a 1-against-10 situation. However, this kind of intense battle was too exhausting. The Dragon Blood warriors hadn't expanded their seas, so their spiritual yuan was limited. They couldn't keep up with this intensity forever. After a day and night of fighting, their energy was starting to flag. Their situation was growing desperate. Talking about that now is useless. Boss should be arriving soon, so just endure it. We'll settle our debts then, said another squad leader. In the back of the battlefield was the Zhou family's genius commander who had come up with the troop distribution. But even if the Zhou family was trying to intentionally harm them, they couldn't do anything about it now. Once their line buckled, the people behind them would be doomed. The entire army would be implicated, so they could only clench their teeth and endure. Fall back into the arched slaughter formation. Your main goal isn't to kill your enemies, but to survive, shouted a squad leader. He saw that they were still able to fight against their enemies. But they wouldn't be able to keep it up for much longer. Bastards, you have to form a barrier at the front. Hold the line, or the enemies will get by, shouted a person standing at the back of the troops. That was the genius commander from the Zhou family. He had been in command of multiple righteous and corrupt battles and had won despite many setbacks. He had plenty of experience, so he had naturally become the commander. Fuck your mother, Zhou idiot, just wait until this over, cursed the squad leader. He ignored his orders, having everyone form a protective arc formation. They changed from offense to defense, making sure they could temporarily survive. He couldn't care too much anymore. The Dragonblood Legion's warriors were all his brothers, and their lives were more important to him than his own. He wouldn't allow any of them to fall. Bastard, you dare to ignore orders. Just wait dash. Halfway through his furious roar, a golden light shot through his body and he exploded. That light hadn't come from the front, but from behind. In other words, it had come from the side of the Xiantian Dao sect. Let's not wait. We're too busy to listen to your long-windedness. An icy voice rang throughout the battlefield. Boss. Hearing that voice, the Dragonblood warriors immediately felt their blood heat up. That voice was too familiar, and they cheered, their morale surging. Long Chen and the others appeared in the air. With his black robes billowing, it was like the arrival of a death god. Everyone, don't panic. An idiot commander's death signifies that victory is near, said Long Chen lightly, calming the uproar caused by the death of their commander. All the experts from the Xiantian Dao sect were affected by Long Chen's arrival. He was the leader of the Xiantian Dao sect's junior generation, and his prestige was extremely high. In the younger generation, his prestige might even surpass the sect master. Good job, brothers. Long Chen gave the Dragonblood warriors a thumbs up. To remain undefeated 1 against 10 gratified him. Leave the rest to us. Brothers, just watch the show. Guoran was the first to charge out, a flashy golden crossbow in his hands. The crossbow shook and released golden rays that exploded amongst their enemies. The corrupt experts in the middle of attacking the Dragonblood warriors were blown up in large clumps. Heavens! The Dragonblood warriors' jaws dropped. The fierce corrupt experts that they had had such difficulty with were nothing in front of Guoran. With just 10 arrows, hundreds of them were killed. Guoran's awe-inspiring power shook the entire battlefield. He immediately drew everyone's attention. He loudly chanted, I swept through the 4 seas, crossed 1,000 mountains, caused huge billows in heaven and earth, slaughtered demons, eliminated devils, plucked the stars and moon. If you want a chivalrous hero, you can come find Aya. Before Guoran could report his name, he was sent flying into the Corrupt Path's army by Long Chen. He couldn't stand him right now. Everyone jumped in fright. Because of Long Chen, Guoran had flown right into the battle of the Elite Sea expansion experts. Don't just watch. You all have important work to do. Long Chen returned to the Dragonblood warriors, ignoring Guoran's plight. Great Soul Barrier. Meng Qi formed hand seals, and a huge spiritual barrier enveloped them. People outside were only able to see a curtain of light around them, but they were unable to see inside. Guoran grumbled, Why couldn't you just let me finish the last 3 words? Boss, I wasn't done yet. Kill. The corrupt experts were first startled at a person suddenly being kicked into their midst, but then they quickly recovered and attacked. Kill your mother, raged Guoran. His fury from having his poser act interrupted now fell onto the corrupt experts in front of him. 2 golden sabers appeared in his hands, and he hacked the person shouting in 2. I, Guoran, am right here. Whoever dares can come at me. With his 2 sabers dancing in the air, Guoran started a slaughter. The 2 sabers were a pair of treasure items he had obtained within the immemorial path. Paired weapons on the level of a treasure item were extremely rare. After he had added them to his set of armor, they hadn't even been damaged during the huge battle in the immemorial path. Thus, it could be seen just how powerful they were. Now that they were just facing corrupt experts who at most possessed low-grade treasure items, he cut through any resistance easily. In an instant, over 10 of the corrupt path's sea expansion experts were killed, shocking them. They hastily retreated. Looking at the armored monstrosity that was Guoran, the Xiantian Dao sect and the righteous path's experts were all shocked. The vanguard, hold the line and slowly retreat. Long Chen's voice suddenly resounded throughout the battlefield. He appeared out of the spiritual barrier, looking down on the entire field. The battlefield contained tens of thousands of experts. But when he compared it to the battle fought in the immemorial path, Long Chen felt like it was nothing more than child's play. Long Chen wanted all the righteous path's people to retreat from the battle, as they were too weak. There were even Meridian Opening disciples fighting on their side. Just now, he had gathered the Dragon Blood Legion and distributed the 10,000 Spirit Blood, Divine Mortal Molting Elixir, Heavenly Dao Fruits, and Sea Expanding Pills to them all. They were to absorb the first 3 things as fast as possible and then get ready to attack Sea Expansion. Of course, those treasures were too important, and so he had Meng Qi summon a barrier to block other people's vision. He watched as Guoran's addition to the battlefield caused the whole battle to become imbalanced. Just on his own, he drew all the experts' attention. Many of the Xiantian Dao sect's monastery heads were freed up and went to help other squads that were in a dangerous situation. The tempo of the battle slowed down quite a bit. Those at Xiantian and below, retreat out of the battle, shouted Long Chen. What? The Xiantian Dao sect's experts couldn't believe their ears. If all Xiantian experts and below left, then they would only have a few hundred people left on the battlefield. Listen to Long Chen. Those below Sea Expansion, retreat. A booming voice rang out from the air. It was Ouyang Qiuyu. Ouyang Qiuyu was fighting 2 corrupt experts who had both reached Foundation Forging and were extremely strong. They had intentionally distanced themselves from the battlefield and were fighting in the air. Hearing Ouyang Qiuyu, no one hesitated any longer. They all retreated, leaving behind only Sea Expansion experts. This sudden change caught the corrupt path completely off guard. But looking at Long Chen standing in the air, for some unknown reason, they felt like they shouldn't approach him. It was like getting 1 step closer to him was getting 1 step closer to death. The corrupt experts gathered the majority of their power on Guoran. But even in the face of hundreds of Sea Expansion experts, Guoran was unstoppable. The main thing was that this armor was too shameless. All their attacks were unable to break it. Thus, the corrupt experts could only bitterly endure. After a moment, the Xiantian Dao sect and the smaller sects' tens of thousands of experts had mostly all retreated into the distance. They were perplexed, not knowing what Long Chen was thinking. Long Chen icily looked at the sky. His heart shook, and he suddenly looked at the spiritual barrier below him. With a stamp of his foot, he shot toward Ouyang Qiuyu. What? Everyone was shocked. Long Chen actually wanted to join a battle of Foundation Forging experts? Had he gone mad? With a single step, Long Chen arrived at Ouyang Qiuyu's side. Everyone was startled. Ouyang Qiuyu was fighting against 2 old monsters from the corrupt path. It was an incredibly imposing sight, and any Sea Expansion experts that entered their scope would be blown apart. Sorry, I'm very busy. Don't mind me. Long Chen directly charged at one of the corrupt path's old monsters. The 2 of them were both late Foundation Forging experts. With their full power released, space was constantly twisting around them. That was the specific power of Foundation Forging experts. Foundation Forging experts were able to control a certain amount of spatial power. That was a kind of comprehension realm. Advancing to Foundation Forging didn't just rely on support and talent, but it also required high comprehension skills. For a Xiantian expert to reach sea expansion was comparatively easy. By piling on the resources, any somewhat talented person could reach sea expansion. But for foundation forging, no matter how many resources you piled on, no matter how great their innate talent, if their comprehension skills were lacking, they would never be able to reach foundation forging. It required a certain level of comprehension into the heavenly Daos. So foundation forging experts were very few. If it hadn't been for Long Chen, Shui Wuhan wouldn't have reached foundation forging ever in her life. These two were precisely two of the three that had killed the vice sect master and heavily injured Shui Wuhan. The two of them were extremely strong, but back then, one of their group of three had been killed by Ouyang Chuyu, and these two had fled. Now that they were once more fighting, the two of them were merely focused on stalling Ouyang Chuyu. They hadn't expected Long Chen to join their battle, as he had clearly just advanced to the first heaven stage of sea expansion. With a cold snort, they simply ignored him. With his combat power, it wasn't worth it for them to split their attention. They had to focus on Ouyang Chuyu. Long Chen smiled slightly. He sent a single punch toward one of them. "Idiot, you won't even be able to break my spatial wall dash," sneered that old monster. But his sneer quickly transformed into astonishment and then horror. Boom. The transparent spatial barrier around him was instantly shattered by one punch. Long Chen then sent out another punch. The corrupt expert hastily moved his soul-summoning banner to block. Long Chen's fist became covered in thunder force as he struck it. What astonished the corrupt expert was that cracks appeared on his soul-summoning banner. It was a peak-grade treasure item, but was broken just like this. "Bastard, how can you possess heavenly lightning?" That old monster finally realized the problem. His soul-summoning banner was a supreme corrupt item that contained the aggrieved souls of countless people, and Long Chen's thunder force had killed all the evil energy within it. The only thing that could possess such power was the most supreme yang existence, heavenly tribulation lightning. Boom. His response was another punch. It was just a single punch, one relying on just his physical strength. At this time, Long Chen's body had been completely changed by the green dragon essence blood. The corrupt expert summoned a runic shield, but it was unable to bear a single blow from Long Chen. His shield shattered and he shot back, vomiting blood. One fist broke his spatial barrier, one fist broke his peak-grade treasure item, and one fist caused a late foundation forging expert to vomit blood. Everyone was shocked. Those people from the Xiantian Dao sect were especially shocked. A year ago, Long Chen had already been terrifying enough. But now, his power had practically surpassed the scope of their understanding. Is he really human? The experts who had come from other sects couldn't believe their eyes. How could they? Their jaws were dropped so low it was almost possible to see their stomachs. At sea expansion, he was able to fight across realms against a foundation forging expert. Furthermore, it was the early sea expansion against late foundation forging, and with just 3 punches, he caused him to vomit blood. They felt like their heads had broken. Even Ouyang Chuyu was shocked. However, she was also delighted. Long Chen's power caused her to feel much more assured. In truth, although she had launched a furious counterattack against the corrupt path for their sneak attack against the Xiantian Dao sect, she had her own secret troubles. The Xiantian Dao sect had suffered immense damage this time, and their prestige had dropped sharply. It was a grievous blow, especially to their influence over the righteous path. Ouyang Chuyu had no choice but to launch a fierce counterattack in order to show the Xiantian Dao sect's power. Otherwise, not only would others look down on them, but she would also have no way to explain this to the head sect. However, the vice sect master had died, and Shui Wuhan had been heavily injured. Ouyang Chuyu's plan had been to wait for Shui Wuhan to heal from her injuries, which was why she had just been patiently fighting these two. She was waiting for Shui Wuhan. She had never imagined that Shui Qingfeng would actually be so stupid. Even at this life and death juncture of the entire Xiantian Dao sect, he had actually wanted to play games. If it hadn't been for Long Chen, Shui Wuhan would be on the brink of death right now. The person Ouyang Chuyu had been waiting for hadn't arrived, but Long Chen had. And his power was just what she needed. "Bastard brat, fuck off." The injured corrupt expert roared furiously. Previously, he had been focused on fighting Ouyang Chuyu, which was why he had been at such a disadvantage. A huge palm image covered the sun and smashed toward Long Chen. A terrifying pressure descended upon him. "Careful," warned Ouyang Chuyu. She knew that this was a full-power attack from him. She was worried Long Chen wouldn't be able to handle it, and she was just about to help him. But suddenly, a blood-red saber appeared in Long Chen's hands. A huge saber image manifested, looking like a celestial blade. "Split the heavens too." Boom. The palm image and saber image both exploded. Heavens, Long Chen can break a foundation forging expert's full-strength attack? Doesn't that mean he truly has the power to challenge late foundation forging experts? That's terrifying. At the first heaven stage of sea expansion, he can challenge late foundation forging experts. Just what kind of monster is he? Countless people from the Xiantian Dao sect were looking at the sky in shock. They were looking at that godlike figure holding a blood-red saber. Blood soul devours, ghost kill. After having his attack broken, the corrupt expert clapped both his hands together and a sea of blood appeared behind him. That sea of blood was 300 miles long. A bloody scent filled the air. Although it was condensed from countless runes, in truth, those runes were created through the souls and essence blood of countless dead experts. The sea condensed into a huge skull, and it smashed toward Long Chen. Bang! Long Chen slashed his saber onto the skull, but he felt an immense power behind it. He was constantly forced back. Divine Ring. A four-colored divine ring emitting endless might appeared behind him. Long Chen's power explosively grew alongside Blood Drinker. He had activated its true form. At the same time, his spiritual yuan poured through 18 acupuncture points. Boom! An unstoppable saber image erupted into existence, instantly shattering the huge skull. The huge saber image continued toward the corrupt expert. The corrupt expert was appalled. He had never imagined that Long Chen could possess the power to destroy the magical art he was so proud of. He hastily formed a layer of defense. As a result, it was cleanly cut through. Boom! The corrupt expert smashed into the ground like a shooting star, and the experts Guoran was fighting against were blown to smithereens by the impact. Even Guoran was unfortunate. He hadn't expected disaster to suddenly fall from the sky. He just happened to be where the corrupt expert fell. He felt like a balloon that had been kicked by a foot. He flipped through the air, his blood surging within him. If he hadn't refined the rank for Heavenly Dao Fruit and the 10,000 Spirit Blood, strengthening his constitution to a whole new level, he would have been heavily injured just now. While Guoran felt like the stars in the sky were spinning around him, he suddenly felt someone catch him. Only then did he realize he had been blown back into his group. Now the Xiantian Dao sect's people finally understood why Long Chen had all Xiantian experts and below retreat. The result of Long Chen's attack had caused a powerful shockwave that exterminated over 10,000 corrupt experts. Even sea expansion experts were killed. Thinking of that, they felt a chill. What if the corrupt expert had landed on the side of the righteous path? Just how many people could have survived? Well done, Long Chen. Ouyang Chuyu felt like flowers were blooming inside her heart. Although she had always had a favorable opinion of Long Chen, she had never dared to imagine he would be so powerful. Boom! A figure flew into the air. He was flying toward a spatial portal in the distance. "Stop him, Long Chen. He's trying to flee," shouted Ouyang Chuyu. But that corrupt expert was quite crafty. He had traveled quite a ways underground, and only then had he flown out. He instantly flew into the portal and disappeared. Seeing him flee, the other corrupt expert suddenly released a blinding light like the sun. He lit up the entire sky, blinding people, and somehow everyone's other senses disappeared. Their sense of hearing, smell, and even touch were gone. It was like the world had turned static. Just as everyone was shocked by this move, the blinding light disappeared. Their senses returned to normal. Up in the sky, Ouyang Chuyu was smiling coldly. At some unknown point, a sword had appeared in her hand. It was stabbing through the corrupt expert's body. That corrupt expert was filled with shock. He was unable to move an inch. Ice chi began to envelop him, turning him into an ice statue. Did you think I was an idiot? You wanted to escape with such a flimsy little trick? Ouyang Chuyu disdainfully wrapped her opponent in runes before extracting her sword. He had his life, but now he was a hostage. She dropped him to the ground. Ouyang Chuyu smiled at Longchen. Who would have thought that in just 1 year, you would be able to fulfill your promise? For some unknown reason, seeing Ouyang Chuyu's smile made a trace of warmth appear in Longchen's heart. Perhaps it was because of dealing with schemes for so long, but that simple act touched him deeply. I don't remember making any promise to you. Longchen shook his head. Oh, you've forgotten already? I seem to recall that back then, someone intimately called me little sister and said that if anyone bullied me, I could come and find you, laughed Ouyang Chuyu. Longchen's arrival caused Ouyang Chuyu's originally chaotic mood to instantly improve a great deal. The haze over her heart finally faded. Longchen immediately felt awkward. Back then he really had been an idiot. He had been tricked by Ouyang Chuyu's outer appearance and treated her as an ordinary disciple. He had even bragged so much. You came from the Shintian Dao sect, right? What's going on there? Shui Wuhan should have recovered by now, so why didn't she come with you? Asked Ouyang Chuyu. As soon as Shui Wuhan was mentioned, Longchen's gaze turned cold. His gaze swept over the sea expansion experts of the Shintian Dao sect, and his killing intent slowly rose once more. Sect Master, although raising this topic now is a bit unsuitable, I'm an impatient person and I don't like to stall. Within our group are several black sheep that need to be eliminated. What? When Ouyang Chuyu heard that Shui Qingfeng had actually been so stupid as to try to kill Shui Wuhan, Ouyang Chuyu's expression sank to a frightening point. How brazen! The brazen ones aren't just those few idiots from the Shui family. The Zhou family is also quite brazen. Wouldn't you say, Zhou family head? Longchen turned toward a certain elder in the crowd. That person was the new Zhou family head. He immediately shouted, Longchen, I admit you're powerful, but you can't willfully slander others. As soon as you appeared, you killed our commander, but I didn't say anything. Now you want to slander me? Just what are you thinking? Why do you always have to target my Zhou family? The Zhou family head's voice sounded righteous and wronged, and he spoke loudly so everyone could hear him. That commander was clearly garbage. His distribution of battle power was clearly unbalanced. The right wing's enemies were strong, but he placed the majority of our power to the left? Do you think I'm an idiot and can't see that he placed the Dragonblood Legion at the front to be sacrificial pawns? Asked Longchen icily. What does a brat like you know of battle tactics? You're just shamelessly framing people. If you want to accuse someone, bring out your proof. If you don't have any proof, then just shut your mouth. Shouted the Zhou family head. Proof? Sorry, but I'm not a bailiff. If you want proof, well, let's just see. Longchen's gaze locked onto the Zhou family head, and he suddenly found that he was unable to move. Longchen's spiritual strength crashed down on him like a mountain. He felt like he had been dropped in an ice house. He was unable to move, but it wasn't a spatial art. It was a spiritual suppression and a kind of killing intent lock. I ask you, was that commander intentionally harming the Dragonblood Legion? Shouted Longchen. Ouyang Chuyu was startled. She hadn't expected that it wasn't just Longchen's combat power that was so frightening. Even his spiritual strength was terrifying. This was an extremely domineering spiritual interrogation. With his spiritual strength locked around him, the Zhou family head couldn't lie. If he did, the slightest spiritual fluctuation from telling a lie would activate Longchen's killing intent and his soul would be destroyed. After struggling for a long time, the Zhou family head didn't have the courage to lie in the end. Were you the one who incited that? Longchen's expression didn't change. The Zhou family head tightly shut his mouth, his whole body trembling and sweating. He didn't dare to make a sound. He looked at Ouyang Chuyu with a pleading expression. Longchen Ouyang Chuyu had just opened her mouth when Longchen flashed into motion, pressing a finger against the Zhou family head's forehead. Soul search. Everyone was horrified. Longchen truly was brazen, to actually exceed his position and directly use a soul search against the Zhou family head in front of Ouyang Chuyu. Once this soul search was over, wouldn't the Zhou family head be turned into an imbecile? "You brazen criminal, hurry and release me dash." The Zhou family head's furious roar was cut off by a golden light. He was dead. "When my boss takes action, don't make such a fuss," shouted Guoran. He had been the one to kill him. Ouyang Chuyu's expression changed slightly. Long Chen's actions truly were not giving her, the sect master, face. He didn't care at all about her opinion. Zhou Changwei, Zhou Yaohui, Zhao Qingjie. Long Chen listed off 8 names, all of which were the Zhou family's higher-ups. Those who were named immediately turned pale as paper. Guoran raised his finger and pointed at them. The 8 of them were locked down. "Long Chen, we can discuss this matter later. Right now," Ouyang Chuyu couldn't help but open her mouth. Now wasn't the time to continuously kill their own sea expansion experts. It would affect their army. Guoran helped them out. Long Chen seemed to not hear Ouyang Chuyu. "Okay." Guoran pointed his finger. A golden ray shot out and killed one of the Zhou family's experts. "Sect Master, save us dash." Miserable cries rang out as Guoran continued pointing. Arrows shot out too quickly and at too close of a distance for them to do anything but die. "Long Chen, I order you to stop," shouted Ouyang Chuyu furiously. "Why should I stop?" Long Chen suddenly turned to look at her. He looked like a furious lion, his killing intent soaring into the sky. "They wanted to kill my brothers, so why can't I kill them? Do I really have to wait until they actually do kill my brothers so I can kill them in revenge? Who came up with that dog's hit logic? Don't try giving me some garbage about taking my time and how I can settle the bill later, or how I need to get proof. I don't care about any of that. Anyone who dares to touch my brothers all have to die. Every single one of them." Long Chen thought of Little Snow's death. His fury and killing intent were about to erupt out of his control. His final words echoed through the air. Even someone with Ouyang Chuyu's cultivation base felt her head ringing from Long Chen's voice. But even more terrifying, Long Chen's eyes were completely red. He looked like a bloodthirsty devil who might start killing people at any moment. This was Ouyang Chuyu's first time seeing Long Chen so furious, and her own fury vanished without a trace. "The reason I traveled so far wasn't because I care so much about the Xiantian Dao sect, but because my brothers are here, and because my big sister is here. For them, I can put my life on the line. But as for the dog's hit rules you higher-ups like to play, I've had enough. Don't talk to me about background or influence. Anyone who dares to scheme against my people will have my butcher's knife chop off their heads." Long Chen's voice shook everyone's hearts. In that instant, it felt like all their lives were in his hands, as if a single thought from him could kill them all. He was too terrifying. 8 of the Zhou family's experts had been killed. After completing the mission Long Chen had given him, Guoran casually walked back behind him. "You don't feel any ties to the Xiantian Dao sect?" Ouyang Chuyu sighed with disappointment. As the head of that family, she viewed each disciple as her own child. Long Chen's words were hurtful. "I don't like the Xiantian Dao sect's atmosphere. The internal strife and despicable schemes continue in an unending stream. Just now, all I did was kill a few of the vermin targeting me. But in reality, the Xiantian Dao sect is infested with more vermin that hinders the sect's proper development. I'm sure you're even clearer about that than me. I want to love the Xiantian Dao sect, but in front of the endless schemes that want me dead, I don't know just how I'm supposed to love it," said Long Chen. The higher-ups all felt ashamed. Yes, it was true that all their energy was focused on internal strife. But there was no way around that. If they didn't, they would have to leave or die. No matter what they wanted to do for the sect, they would have to go through many twists and turns. Countless people were worried that you would soar like a shooting star above them, and so they would heavily suppress you. As you constantly worked your way through that, you would constantly run into blockades. Cooking a good bowl of porridge wasn't easy, but ruining it was. All it required was a single log of stool to destroy your work of several years or even decades. After trying for so long, everyone had given up. Instead, They held their own logs of stool and their sights on other people's bowls of porridge. It began an unending, vicious cycle. Many people understood this principle, but they were unable to do anything about it. These had become unspoken rules, and they had to follow them. This was what it meant by the law could not condemn everyone. It wasn't as if they could kick out every single one of them. Wouldn't the sect be disbanded then? Although they were all just holding logs of stool to target others, at least on the surface, it would appear like the sect was flourishing. This was the case for the majority of sections. Although I don't have any good feelings toward the sect, my brothers and sisters are here. They are the people I love, so I've come, continued Longchen. Hearing that, Ouyang Chuyu's disappointed eyes brightened. I don't care about the problems with the sect system, nor do I care about your hopelessly tangled relationships. How other people want to fight against each other means nothing to me. However, don't provoke me. Longchen glared at the Xiantian Dao sect's higher-ups. This was a warning. Originally, Ouyang Chuyu had thought that Longchen was saying these heartless words because he was planning on leaving the Xiantian Dao sect. But now he had clearly expressed himself. Although he didn't like the Xiantian Dao sect, he wouldn't leave the sect. That relieved her. At the same time, she was also extremely ashamed. She was the highest leader of the Xiantian Dao sect, but she had never been able to steel herself to completely cleanse the sect. If she had been ruthless back then the Xiantian Dao sect might not be in its current form. Longchen, what are you planning to do now? Asked Ouyang Chuyu. Sect Master, do you want to play it big? Longchen stared at the distant spatial portal, his eyes icy cold. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.